The opinions expressed in this program are not those of CISA 7 or Time Warner Cable.
What's your tomorrow?
All right, I'd like to call the board meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Then I'd like Andrew to read the mission statement.
We ensure that all students are college, career, and community ready, inspired to succeed in our diverse community.
Thank you, Andrew. Next, we have our open forum. This is a chance for members of the community to speak before the board. And I don't have any forms filled out, but is there anyone who would like to speak before the board this evening? Seeing none, we'll then move on to our recognition. We have an exciting recognition tonight, and I would ask the members of the Ice Bears to come forward, and I think Tim Flood is going to join them also.
What is not to love about being the Ice Bears?
I know. In recognition of the the Bay Area Ice Bears for achieving their first WIAA state championship. Signed by both Michelle Langenfeld, our superintendent, Brenda Warren, board president, March 24th, 2014.
Picture?
Oh, here, wait.
Oh, there you go.
Photo moment.
And we'll ask you to introduce yourselves.
And your positions?
My name's Jackie Spencer, and I play forward, and I'm a senior. Oh, Green Bay East.
My name's Caitlin Spencer, and I go to East, and what? Oh, I'm in 9th grade. I'm Janelle Watruba. I go to Green Bay Preble, and I'm a 9th grader.
Let's speak a little bit about the Green Bay Bay Area Ice Bears Girls Hockey Co-op. It consists of 11 high schools from the area. It started 5 years ago, and this is our second trip to Madison. Our first year, our inaugural year, we actually were state runner-up, and we've been to two sectional finals since, and lost both of those in overtime, and we finally broke through this year. And the girls played another overtime game, a semifinal game. Well, actually, the sectional final game was an overtime game down at University School Milwaukee. Beat them 2-1. Is that correct? 3-2. Okay. And then at Madison, our state semifinal game was against the Central Wisconsin Storm, which is the Wausau DC Everest Co-op, and we beat them in overtime. That one was 2-1. Okay. And then we played the Onalaska Co-op in the championship game, and it was 5-1 with 4 minutes to go in the game. And then they scored, made it 5-2. Then they scored again about 20 seconds later, made it 5-3. And then they scored again about a minute later and made it 5-4. With about 40 seconds left, we scored to make it 6-4, and I actually all right, we got her now. Nope, wrong. 20 seconds later, they scored again to make it 6-5, and they actually had a couple shots at the end that we battled on defense to.
I read that. That was a nail.
It was a white knuckler, that's for sure. So, but these girls played extremely hard all season long. They lost one game. That was the first game of the season to the Central Wisconsin Storm. They lost to them in the opening game of the Gobbler Cup, and then they won 26 straight games to win the state championship. So.
Very cool.
You guys get to
Yeah.
freshman? Wow.
Oh,
Are you
all
gonna play
right.
next year? You college? You don't know where you're gonna go? Opportunities. I know.
Yeah.
How impressive.
That's awesome.
Now, do we get to keep this, Mr. Flood, because you're in charge at East High School of the whole program, right?
We used to have it, but the other schools have bought their own trophies to
Okay.
display at their own
Yeah.
offices.
Oh,
Good.
okay.
Their trouble will have theirs also.
Okay.
All right.
Very cool.
Yeah. Congratulations again. Great news.
Very fun.
I love that, the Ice Bears.
Ice Bears,
Makes me want to
that's good.
play some hockey.
Hey,
That would have been my sport.
we used to play in Astor Park.
I played
Up here.
hockey.
Did you? They had a nice rink.
All right.
Minnesota, we played
Blue
hockey.
nose, blue ears.
Yeah.
Let's not talk it up though, just in case they challenge us.
That would be.
All right, we'll move on to,
No, that wouldn't be a good
move
idea.
on to roll call. Sadie?
Jeffries,
Here.
Franz,
Excused.
Warren,
Here.
Wagner,
Here.
Flecka,
Here.
Maloney,
Here.
Becker,
Here.
Devani.
Here. We have 6 board members present. We're also joined at the table by Priyanka Navani, who's the ICSC Intercity Student Council President and a senior at Preble. And I'm also joined to my left by Dr. Michelle Langenfeld, our superintendent, and Sandy Heller, our board secretary. I would entertain a motion to approve the following board meeting minutes from February 24th, or special board meetings from February 24th and March 3rd, and special board meetings, closed sessions on February 24th and March 3rd.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next we have communications. We have one anonymous communication to place on file. Do I have to entertain a motion? I'll entertain a motion to do that.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll place that letter on file. And next, we have our monitoring reports, which will be facilitated by Celestine Jeffries.
Thank you, Brenda. So we have a few schools to talk with us today. Jennifer Sipes from Jackson, Carrie Shepard from Martin, Kelly Rowland from McCullough, and Lisa Bohm, who's the associate director, and then Terry Williams and Mark. So come on up.
I think we have a couple teachers joining us
Oh,
as
and
well.
also
Yes.
some teachers as well.
Yes.
Well, please do join the table. Oh my gosh, props. I
Oh,
love it.
all right.
I do. I like props. We like to see what the students are doing, so that's great. Awesome.
You can definitely tell this is a presentation from elementary
Yes,
school.
yes.
They came prepared, so,
Okay.
good evening. For the general public, I offer just a little bit of context to this evening's presentation. As you mentioned, Celestine, you'll be hearing school monitoring reports from 3 elementary schools, Martin, McCullough, and Jackson. They'll be providing you with a summary of their school improvement efforts. As mentioned before, the written report that you have is divided into 2 sections. The first section, which is an executive summary, more of a macro level view. And the second section is a more micro level view that really focuses on the tasks that the buildings are implemented and how they align to the strategic roadmap, in particular, strategic directions C and strategic directions D, which we'll reference later on in the presentation. The goal of the presentation is to serve as a communication tool for the Board of Education. At the end of the presentation, there will be no governance requests. It'll simply be an update and a communication to the board. Our efforts are always directed towards continuous improvement. You're going to hear 3 schools talk about some of their celebrations, but it's continuously focused on improving and moving forward, as our teachers will illustrate, as well as the principals. Therefore, to start the process, each school conducted an assessment of their student achievement data. This also is provided in the report. The results of these measures indicate some significant success, but also some opportunity for growth. In particular, I'll just highlight a few in terms of how the schools did relative to WKCE as well as PALS. And PALS stands for the Phonological Awareness Literacy Screener. In particular, both Martin and McCullough have achieved district vision for PALS. Jackson's goal is to move at least one level towards that vision on PALS as well. The goal for WKCE reading for McCullough is to move towards vision, so they're one level below that. The goal for WKCE reading for both Jackson and Martin is to move within one level of vision, so they're pretty close to that and excited. The goal for WKC math for both Jackson and Martin is to achieve vision. And lastly, we would note that McCullough has achieved vision for WKC math at this point, and they would like to continue to keep that at that level. So, although there are many things to celebrate about the direction of these three buildings and where they're moving, it's also important to recognize their journey on the school improvement process. So, to hear a little bit more about the school's improvement journey, we have two staff members here that are going to give their perspective, and then we'll do a line change, staying with the hockey theme, and allow the principals to come up. I was waiting for that opportunity.
I knew that was.
Finally, hockey related.
Yes. So joining us from Martin is Jen Good. She's a 5th grade teacher, and also joining us from Jackson is Jamie Lobs, who is a 3rd grade teacher. She brought the props. So Jen, why don't you go ahead and give us your impression, and then we can turn it over to Jamie.
Sure. One of the wonderful things we've been doing at Martin this year is we've introduced the I can statements, or actually I should say made sure we've gone full board with the whole school through kindergarten through 5th grade, making sure that everyone was on the same page and working together the same collaboratively. So what we did is we created a little icon that we use in every single classroom and everywhere we go. It's a nice big bright yellow pencil that points straight to our I can statements every day. And the goal of those is that each day as teachers we introduce what's going to be taught before the lesson happens for literacy, all 3 areas of literacy, and for math. And after we present that, then we go through our lesson, and as we wrap up, the kids kind of come back and reword it in their own language to make sure that they've really understood what lesson was being taught for the day. And it's a beautiful way to watch the collaboration between the staff as we've worked together to really make it happen, and for the students to really make sure that they're understanding what's being taught every day.
Thank you. Jamie?
You know, as educators, we all wear many different hats. You also know as educators, we work very, very hard. And we like to take our goals and we like to put them out there and reach for that distant star. We like to reach. As a result, oftentimes we find, here's the hat we end up wearing. There we are, all in our own little ships, circling around in the dark. Well, last year, we went to the data retreat, and it knocked Jackson School into a different orbit, if you will. We thought instead of attaching those goals to that distant star, let's bring them in. Let's make our school improvement plan. Let's make all of our goals our star. Vision, let's make our goals, our improvement, everything we do. Let's put it right in the middle of us. Let's let it shine on everything we do at Jackson School. So we took, and that school improvement plan, as you can see here now, is right in the middle of us. That's our sun. That's where our energy and all of our power comes from at Jackson. So instead of all of us now riding around in our own little capsules, we all got aboard one big data-driven mothership, if you will, and we all are working together. You can see how we meet up here in staff meetings. We all meet, we talk. What is it we need to work on? Where are we going? What are the good things going on in our school? What do we need to work on? So we all get our little mission. We all climb off, go off, take our little spacewalk, and we work in our classrooms. We've got those I can statements. We've got those assessments that we do. After that, the next time we meet, we get together with the others in our grade level, and we say, hey, here's how this was working for me. How did it work for you? I noticed your kids did so good on, on Read About the other day. What did you do? So now we work together. So now we're coming together, still with that school improvement plan, just beaming down on us, energizing us. We meet again. Now this time, we meet in our CLTs and we get that lit coaches involved. Now we get a little bigger group, constantly saying, you know, those driving questions that we have. We've got our ESAIL compass. Now, ESAIL stands for the Environmental Survey Assessing Implementation of Literacy. I know what it means. I don't always know all these acronyms. So what we do is we constantly refer to that. And what that is that's where we look at our environment. So what are we doing? How are our classroom libraries? What are we doing in our classroom? How do we put the kids into groups? What kind of instruction are we doing? Is it all whole group? Are we small group? Are we differentiating? We drive ourselves with those questions. Why am I teaching this? How's it going to help my students? How am I going to know they've learned it? And what am I going to do if they don't know it? Or what am I going to do if they need more? So we've got this compass, those questions that just keep driving and driving us at Jackson School. We're also trying to get a little mission control center, of which that's where our school, our people like you downtown here, we use you to help us. That's where our professional development comes from. That's our mission control that we've got to help guide us. Then we take all of this data that we've worked on so hard, we bring it to the BLT. The BLT takes a look at this, and we keep asking those guiding questions. What can we do? What can we keep doing? What can we do to help those kids? How do they have it? What are we gonna do if they don't have it now? What are they gonna do if they need more? So that's where we brainstorm, come up with some ideas, and look at how we come right back around in that cycle. Then we meet again at a staff meeting. We bring that information out to the staff, and we just keep going round and round and round. So we're hoping that our future is looking so bright that the next time you visit Jackson School, and we really extend that invitation, we want you to come and see our bright future. But you know, if you do come visit us, you better bring your shades.
That's good.
Could you just picture the movie Gravity?
I think that's what I heard so much about that.
You should see
That's
it.
where I
Actually,
did
one
that.
of your colleagues told me that you were coming to our meeting. In fact, she was going to try and come to the meeting because she just so enjoys your enthusiasm and your ability to share your knowledge with your colleagues.
Well, I love what I do and I love where I work, so thank you.
You teach third grade?
Yes.
I think I'm going back to third grade.
I don't know if at this point you want to hear from the principals or to talk to the
Can you
teachers,
top
but-
that?
I'm just trying to figure out how it relates to hockey,
back
but
there,
that's
letting
okay.
the teachers do their thing.
So there's no good transition from that. Did a wonderful job, and I think the one piece that I so appreciate from what Jamie articulated is that is the essence of two things that we're trying to implement by throughout the district, which is how do you work within a professional learning community, and then how does that professional learning community drive continuous improvement? She articulated that as well as anyone that I've ever heard, and I think that is that's a sign of the leadership and of the involvement that's happening there. So that was phenomenal. So at this point, we'll invite the principals up, and they can give you a little bit deeper dive.
Thank
Teachers
you.
won't go anywhere; they'll be available for questions after as well.
Very good, thank you.
You're up.
All right. Well, I just wanted to share with you, we have incredible teachers at Jackson, but I do love coming to Mrs. Lott's classroom. She has that much energy every minute of the day. Not 1 minute of instruction is wasted. So we are pleased on what she does for our leadership at Jackson. Just going off of where we started at Jackson, we did talk about those I can statements. We did some professional learning around those I can statements. And we do have all of our staff members make sure that those I can statements are presented and they're posted on the wall, and that's for math and literacy. And then also our special area teachers, regarding whatever grade level that they are teaching, they too post those I can statements. But the one thing that we have had found that's most important is, do the kids really know what the I can statement is? So we do a lot of checks, and that's one of the things, even as the evaluator, I go in, and if the child can't describe to me what the purpose of the lesson is, then I know that they're not understanding that I can statement. So that's one of the things that we've really been trying to focus in on. One of the ways that we have actually celebrated our success with the I can statements is actually going through and taking some pictures. And then we do a PowerPoint presentation during our staff meeting showing how we're doing with those I can statements. So that's one of the things that we're doing in that area. And if we're going down to, I guess, assessing to refine the instruction, we are constantly looking at data. If I showed you where we started when I first started at Jackson and looking at, what kind of data, it was only usually the FACTS and Pinnell. But now we've really expanded that. So our data chart, our electronic data wall, has so many different assessments on there. We've actually added the math unit assessments, and it's really a way for us to really see how our kids are growing, or asking teachers those difficult questions. What's going on? I see that, there's a couple kids that are not quite getting it. So one of the things that we've really been working on is making sure that we're focusing onto that data during our BLT and our CLTs. One of the things that Jamie had alluded to, we are doing a lot with that eSale document this year. We did a self-assessment in November where the teachers actually went through the document on their own and self-assessed. And then we also, just to make sure that things were bridged together, we had our BLT do some walkthroughs based off of that eSale. So I believe that we're really moving in the right direction with all of those. Professional learning opportunities, we try to make every structured time that we have as meaningful as possible, and that's during our CLTs, our BLTs, and our grade level meetings. We've been staying very focused on the task, and we've actually provided our staff with protocols that are on our shared drive, so they can actually look to see what each one of the CLTs are doing, and then also what their grade level teams are doing. The other professional learning work is we've really been relying on the text instruction that works, and that's really for our universal instruction. We're really trying to provide teachers with the supports for Guided Reading Plus and have that training. We've been doing a lot of peer-to-peer observations. I've had several staff members be very open with getting themselves videotaped, where we actually do some of that professional learning together when we're looking at the guided reading and the instruction. As far as our insight statements, I guess the I can statements have really allowed for our teachers to really expand their focus of their lesson. They've even expanded into our guided reading lessons. So they're really starting to focus that instruction a lot better. As far as the IndaStar, that has really driven our BLT and provided that direction where we're constantly looking and monitoring the information on a monthly basis. And then I guess our third insight statement was based off of our Spanish immersion program. Is going well, and we're really happy that you supported us in that process.
Well, as we discussed, I'm going to try not to be repetitive because many of us are doing similar things, and we know that you've heard a lot. Kelly has the hardest job because he gets to go last.
That's right.
But I think back to last summer's data retreat, and this is my 6th year being principal, and I think back to all my years of teaching, and it was a refreshing change of not looking and crunching percentages and ethnicities and looking through all of that WKCE data that doesn't always help us so much in our regular instruction. So I remember the conversation with my team from Martin thinking it was so easy to read the vision cards and see what the goals that we needed to make and the action steps needed to be that the district was asking of us. So that was really, really helpful and taken very positively by my team. So I think back to that time of trying to plan then for our colleagues, and we ended up making some plans, like for our I CAN statements, that we expected people to have literacy ones done by trimester 1 and math ones done by trimester 2, and the teachers took it on so quickly and so easily, and they were thrilled with it that I think everyone was done with all of them and getting them all ingrained by the end of trimester 1 for math and literacy. So they have moved on to some of the other content areas, and then the special area teachers have taken it on in their own way as well. So that was really taken on positively. And reading the book, Learning Targets that we did in the beginning of the year was helpful because we had a lot of conversations on what is an objective versus an I CAN statement versus a target, and making sure that these are in words that the children understand. So the teachers are constantly meeting in their CLTs talking about some of the I CAN statements that might be out of our math expressions that we have made and some of the words that might be too challenging, or breaking them down into steps instead of large, chunks of information. So those are evolving as we go through, and the teachers continually have conversations. My teacher, Jen Good, who was up before, her 5th grade colleagues and herself teach the children and share children and do projects together. So it's really benefited them to have this common language and making sure that the kids are all on the same page. And then they've taken it another step, as the 4th grade teachers have, where they think that the children are old enough to be able to explain it, not just reference it, but use their own words and tell in a little bit more detail what the lesson was about, and then maybe apply it to another situation. Our assessment, our leadership team created a new plan this year because it was very clear from the vision card and the new data points that we have of what data would be available at different points in the year, and we made a different plan of looking at 2 to 3 different data groups each time that we meet, and trying to rotate through and including more attendance data and things that maybe as a BLT we didn't look at as much in the past, and left that to maybe student services. We've taken on as a team to talk about that and what we can do as teachers, including student services. So that sort of guided us to a different way of looking at our data, instead of just the fountain simple knowledge I mentioned, including some of the STAR data and the math data as well. So that's been beneficial. Having a full-time literacy coach this year has been wonderful. We meet weekly and look at data to help interventions for teachers and what we need to focus on in their professional learning and literacy with her, and what groups she might be taking, or that the teachers might need to do some guided reading plus with, or math interventions. So that's been greatly beneficial at Martin, as we've had a half-time coach in the past. And our professional learning communities, I would say our CLTs are a way of life now at Martin, which a few years ago that was very new. And I am expecting that many of the things that we are starting, the I CAN statements and the new analysis of the data, the multiple types of the data that we have, will be just as easy as doing our CLT protocols as they, in a few years from now, as they have been for the CLTs. So in the CLTs, they are focusing mostly on literacy, and then they have their own grade level math meetings that we call them, instead of necessarily CLTs, but in essence they're all CLTs. So on our inside statements, I think that just the vision cards and the Instar making everything so accessible and so easy to read has really changed the way we create our goals and action steps, and we check on them. Having that technology is very beneficial, and we go through that monthly to make sure that we're getting through them, and then we add things to them as they come up that maybe we didn't think we would have gotten to in our earlier planning. So I'm going to leave a little for Kelly. Hopefully I did.
No, that's it. All right, good evening, board. When I look back to in this summer when we met as our building leadership team to look at the plan for high quality learning targets, it was nice because we had a mixture of newer staff and some veteran staff that had come from other buildings that had more experience in that, because we were kind of new to the whole process. But what I found is that they really supported each other. They started right away off the bat coming up with different ways of presenting the information. For instance, on I CAN statement, it can be as easy as I can add 2-digit numbers. How do you make that look good and so forth, and present it in a way that kids understand it. And obviously, there's much more elaborate ones, but what we found out was right away when we started school, everybody was all excited, talking about how you're gonna do it, where you're gonna put it in the room, how we're gonna make sure that the kids understand it. And they jumped in, and I think we actually jumped in too fast, because they were just pumping them out. At one point, I was going by the printer, and they were out there printing them off for the next whole trimester. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute here. But that was okay, because they were excited about the process, but then we had to step back and learn how to make them effective. You know, it's not as easy as it looks just to write an I can statement. It really has to, you have to look at it, you have to discuss it in your collaborative learning teams. Does this fit right? Is this really what we want the kids to understand and learn? And then how are we going to assess that those kids do understand that? So it was a learning process. We probably wasted a lot of paper, but I think we're fine tuning it as we go. And that'll be a continuous process. It'll be something that, you know, by the end of the year we'll be dumb in the beginning. Now we're really good, but we're going to continue to get better. I think what our teachers did too is move from that compliance to ownership. They really felt that after they'd done it, they were confident and they understood the importance, so it meant a lot more to them. And I guess the best test to see if they're effective in your school is to have the teacher not say the I can statement in the beginning of a literacy or a math lesson and see how the kids respond. Because immediately they'll say, well, where's our I can statement? Oh, wait a minute. So that's a neat thing going on in our building. Trying to think, student understanding. That's the key, is really, you can have a great I can statement, but you really need to make sure that the kids are understanding what's learned. And not only just presenting in the beginning, but presenting it throughout the lesson. And then at the end, how do we best figure out, in an efficient way, do the kids understand it? I mean, you don't want to have a full test after every lesson. Hey, did you understand this? So the teachers have created a variety of different methods. Some are just, everybody has a whiteboard, and they quiz the kids, and everybody holds it up. Or you have a system where you just, if there's, for instance, a math one, maybe you have the kids do 2 problems. You pick 2 of them, and they have to hand that in at the end, and the teacher can, within 5-10 minutes, figure out the majority of their students have understood that concept. As far as analyzing assessment to refine instruction, the big part is to analyze our assessments, both our formative and our summative assessments, not only for student learning, but for adult learning in our building. What can we do with that assessment to then bring on to help our teachers be better at what they do? And so we've really utilized the collaborative learning teams in their ability to meet with each other and dialogue. We're fortunate that we have 4 sections at each grade level, so K-5, and we actually have 5 kindergartens this year. So we have a good mixture of experience and staff that could get along well, work together, have good discussions, bring that learning into our building leadership team on a monthly basis as well. So that kind of jumped into our learning communities, our professional learning communities. What we've really been able to do is to create that environment where teachers have that ability to meet with each other, to talk, to learn, to look at assessments, to look at student samples, to discuss individual kids, and then bring that all back to the building level as a building leadership team. We've got a big team. It's, I think, 9 people on that team. So everybody brings a little bit to that, and then we decide, you know, what do we need to do as far as, again, that student learning and the adult learning. We've also done some videotaping, and we've had a few brave teachers do that, because what we've come to realize is that really an important piece that we have to work on is our universal instruction strategies. We've got 560 students in our building. We've got 1 full-time literacy coach that does an awesome job. We've got a lot of kids and a lot of needs. And so what we want to do is provide teachers those skills to provide those different tiered interventions in the classroom and work with those kids in the classroom. Obviously, there's some kids that need additional support. That's where our literacy coach comes in during that tier 2 intervention, and in some cases the tier 3 as well. And then as far as our insight, I think it's just continuous improvement, constantly looking at our learning targets. How can we get better at this? What have we learned? What can we now bring in to close out the year, and then over the summer, how can we get better at it to start the next year? And then, I guess, let's see. It just, again, it goes back to the learning targets, how can we do better on that? But then that professional learning community in all aspects, the learning targets, the looking at assessment, how could we bring that from the grade level to the building level and then disperse it back to everybody? So that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board? Chris? Then Mike.
I'm going to make sure that you and Andrew, like last time when I moved up to those tables.
I've got your back, Chris.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate everything I'm hearing here, and I have to be careful. W.C. Fields had one of his lines was, "Never go on stage after little kids or dogs." And had he known this teacher, Jackson, he probably would have added that. So I'm, with some hesitation, asking for the microphone. But thank you all with all your presentation. I like everything it said, but in particular, the thing that hits me the most is the professional learning communities. And if I'm believing you, should believe you as I am, that is taking and people are buying into it. I've had the strong belief for years that teachers are smart people. Given a little bit of direction and time together, they can do wonderful things for their kids. So that's the part that impresses me so much. Thank you.
Other questions? Mike, then Brenda.
I guess I want to ask a question that I've asked for all the principals who have appeared before us at this committee, is that if we invite you back at the same time next year, what do you hope to tell us about your building and your level of achievement and staff involvement?
Would you like me to start?
I'd like each of the principals, yes.
Okay. I guess one of the things that I think that you're going to see is that we're going to be becoming more and more and more and more collaborative through that professional learning. If I was actually just telling our BLT team today, because I went into IndyStar and I was, going through all of our checkpoints right before our meeting, and it has really evolved. Back in June when we met, I would not have thought we would be where we're at today. With the learning targets, with the progress that we've made. So it's going to be evolving, but I can see us being even more collaborative than we are already.
Okay.
And you talk about the professional learning communities. What I see for us too, we started doing a lot more of peer-to-peer observation. We have so much power right in our building. We have that power to drive that ship of ours right within that staff that we have. And when we work together and harness that, so I see us growing in that, getting so together with our staff, with our other, our colleagues, and using that knowledge that they have to really make us all stronger. So I see us definitely becoming even more collaborative.
Carrie, you're up.
I agree with both of these ladies, but I also think that at Martin we need to focus on more of the common assessments that we need to have in our mini lessons and at the lower levels of what we're learning. So the basic day-to-day types of assessments that teachers create together so they can really keep on track of what the kids are knowing. So that's something that we've talked about and worked on, and I hope we're in a better place than where we are now, because it's baby stepping its way into that, and as teachers get more comfortable with the ICANN statements and what the children need to know and Common Core and the collaboration, they are becoming more comfortable creating these assessments and using them and talking about them. And at Martin, as Jen was saying, it's not, videotaping might not sound like that big of a deal, but for some people it's a huge deal. And we have teachers that I never would have thought would allow us to videotape them doing a guided reading lesson or guided reading plus for that matter, which is even newer for them. And they are willing to do it, and this is our second year of doing peer observations, and they are, it's just, no one really blinks an eye, so we've come far in a year, and I hope that we've come even farther in a year from now too.
Okay, Kelly?
All right, well, two things come to mind. Number one is the learning targets. I talked a little bit about it in our path at where we are now, but I think we can become more efficient and more effective with it. I think I posed a question in our last building leadership team is, what do we need to do as a school that we're all comfortable with how we present the learning targets, where they are in the room, simple things like that, so that if anybody would come into our building, they'd be able to right away say, yeah, that's the learning targets or I can statements. And I want our staff to be efficient with it, so that just becomes a part of what they do. It's not an extra thing, it's just that they know that every lesson comes with a learning target or an I can statement. Here's what I'm going to do to assess that the kids have learned that. So, and I think that just takes time. So I think next year at this time, I think we'll be a much better handle on that. And the other thing is probably adult learning in the universal instructional strategies. I think that is still a key to what we need to improve on. We've really become better at taking the assessments, knowing what kids are struggling. Now what do we do with that? What do we do with those kids? What are the best instructional strategies to get the best bang from our buck? Our full-time literacy coach and our TI specialist has done an awesome job. And when she works with them on an individual basis during like a tier 2 intervention, where she has an opportunity to meet with them on a daily basis for even if it's 20 minutes a day, we've seen substantial gains. So how can we now bring that to the classroom teachers so that they can do similar things so that we're not pulling so many kids with our learning literacy coach. So those are the two areas that I'm
Great, thank you.
Brenda?
And I don't care who answers this or multiple people can answer it. I'm curious with the I can statements, how difficult and or not difficult is it for your kids with special education needs to be able to understand those I can statements as well as the rest of the classroom? And have you had to do any modifications to them? Have you found tricks that have worked better than others in terms of trying to help those students get hooked into the learning a little bit better each day?
I think what we see at McCullough is that our special ed teachers use a lot of visuals with their I can statements. So it's showing the problem or showing a picture of the I can statement, and then I think probably spending a little extra time on what it is and what it means before they begin the lesson. So, and I know a lot of the classroom teachers are using visuals as well.
Okay, and I was going to ask them.
Not just the I
too.
can add 2 digits. It's actually showing 2 numbers and how they add together.
Does that get more difficult as you get into 4th and 5th grade to be able to? Because it's easy to show that visually when you're, kindergarten first, I would think, and then more difficult
It
when
does,
you get
and I
older.
think in my classroom, I just spend a little extra time. Normally, some of those children are actually pulled out for different areas, or they're working with a special education teacher in the classroom, so they're getting a little extra, but I always make sure to just kind of check in with them, and make sure they're understanding what it is that's being taught. Just sort of checking in, maybe coming and putting it in a little simpler terms at times, or making an example for them at a special, when we'll work together at the back table, or, with anybody who might need. So it's just making sure that they've got an understanding at their level as well.
I think the I can statements are fantastic for some of those kids with special needs because of they're very direct and they're very explicit. And you repeat that over and over and over in your lesson. And you point to that, where that's written up there, and you say, come on, Billy, you say that, let's you and I say that together right now. So I want you to help me out with saying that. Or with, pointing to the words. I'll say the words, you point to those up there for me. And I think it's been great for them because, like I said, they're very direct and they're very explicit. And you constantly reference those through your lesson. And your lesson ends with maybe turn and tell your partner today, what's what you turn and talk and tell them. So they get so many more opportunities to hear what the purpose of that lesson. And I think it's actually can be a boon to them when done, when done correctly.
Anyone else?
I just want to, first of all, commend you. I think the level of conversation of where we've come in very short order, it's not even a full school year. Just the referencing the universal instruction, referencing the collaboration. There's a great book that Blankenstein wrote called The Answers in the Room. And really what it does, it referenced Dr. Wagner in that teachers are smart people. Educators are smart, you work hard, and to collaborate and harness that and focus and target. Absolutely addresses the needs of children. So it's that pinpoint, not only the pinpoint predictor we have at WBAY, but also the pinpointed, focused, harnessed education for each and every child. It really, it's going to take us a while to get there. And the storming and norming happens, but if you have teachers who are willing to let you videotape already, that's really, you've moved quickly. And I think that the piece that I've always seen with educators is the more success the students have, the greater the buy-in, and it's just infectious, and it creates this cycle of continuous improvement around student achievement. So thank you. Thank you for all your work on that.
I just have a quick question, because I know you just had parent-teacher conferences right before break. Did any of the parents make any comments about the I can statements? Are the kids going home with any of these I can statements, or do the parents have any kind of sense of?
I think some did and some didn't, as with any. You
Right.
get some of these kids who go home and tell them every last word you said that day, and then you get some, you didn't do anything at school today. Yes, I did hear quite a few comments actually from parents, just kind of referencing some of the things that we've been working on, or how it's, for us at Martin, we've incorporated all 3 fifth grade teachers. We moved the kids for science and social studies and technology, kind of preparing them for middle school. And they went home and they could talk about how they know those I can statements, whichever room they're in, or whichever teacher they have, because it's so universal for us now. So some of the parents did mention it, which was kind of relieving and surprising. So good.
I do have my children, every Friday I send a little note home to the parents with a work packet, and the children have to pick out one of their favorite I cans from the week. So then they go back and they put that up on the top, the favorite things they learned, and I save all of my I can statements, my Mondays, and I save the posters, and I have those up still throughout the week, so we can always go back and reference. I don't want them to think that, well, once you, in here, out here, we're done with that one. So we keep those up and we go back and reference. And then they go at the end of the week, they write to their parents. They put a favorite I can statement up there and they explain it, and then their parents sign the little note and send it back. So I didn't get too much talk, only because we've been doing, that all year to hopefully keep those statements, right there alive.
Actually, that's a nice segue into my question, which, we're 2/3 of the way into the school year. And I'm wondering how much the I can statement becomes part of the child's learning. So I'm interested to know, you segued, how the I can statements from, say, Thanksgiving are now part of the child's learning, and if you see that the child, your students understand things a little bit better because they have articulated those learning goals in the past, and they can bring those forward to the present.
Even today in our math lesson, we went back to fractions, which we hadn't touched for like 3 months, and it became part of the lesson. I'm like, well, I remember that when you're doing this, I can, and all of a sudden they started telling me how to add the fractions, and I was like, all right,
Okay.
it is. You know what, and not for every single child, but I think there are some that it's really catching to remember something that they've practiced so many times and been able to articulate and say, so.
Okay.
Well, and to keep it in that tense, they get to be our age and they were a bunch of I could statements.
Yes.
They still can.
They still can at this point.
That's right.
Yes. So you're finding that as well? And
we record them in our writer's notebook. So if we're doing something in our writer's notebook, we'll put a little target on the top and write that up there, or write a few words on that. Color the target in at the end of the lesson. Turn and tell your friend, and then color your target in at the top. You've hit the targets today. Now show them one way you can use that before we go home. Before you go home at night. Tell me any I can statement that we've had. It doesn't have to be from that day, but we try to keep a little record of those in our notebooks, in our journals, in our notebooks. So what are some of those things, so they can go back through and pull those statements out.
yeah, I also see, just in terms of universal instruction and making sure that your assessments match the way that the instruction has gone, I think speaks to the longevity of the I can statement, which also speaks to, did I teach it? Did the students get it? How much did they understand? How much will they take with them forward? Et cetera, et cetera. because this is something we're going to be doing now into the future. And then I had one other question too for, give me a moment. I think it might have been, oh my. Just give me a second. Okay, one of you had mentioned how the parents, that you find that the parent-school connection has been stronger. I think that was in one of the insight statements. And now I can't find it.
It could have been mine. I think what at McAuliffe, I think our
Yes,
teachers do
it was
a great
yours, yeah.
job of
Sorry.
communicating not just your typical, hey, don't forget Spirit Day next Thursday.
Mhm.
It's you know, what have we learned throughout the week? What are some ha-has? Here are some strategies that you could do at home to assist with your child. It's going beyond than just that communication piece. It's a learning tool that our teachers have used. So it not necessarily goes with the ICANN, but it's all about communicating with your families so that they can help you as a teacher do what you're doing in the classroom. Just extend that learning to the home. So some of our teachers actually invite parents to come in. Invite them all, you know, throughout the year. Not everybody takes them up on it, but in particular, if there's students that are struggling and they're using strategies, and I know Brenda Michaels does a great job of that. We'll have parents come in after school and share some of the strategies that she uses that are effective with their kids, and then they can use those at home. So that's fine.
Good. Anything else? All righty. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and extend to your entire staff our thank for all of your hard work and continued success.
Mark? Not so fast. So next month? We had some time off in March, but we're back on a 1-3 schedule. So next month, where are we going?
Yep. We made a decision to group our elementary schools in a way that was manageable for the presentation.
Yeah.
So we have 4 elementary schools left. So next month we have, and we thank you for referencing because we missed this one. This was to be the previous month, so we backed it up 1 month. We have King, Webster, Langley, and Week-Weok that are scheduled to come next, and that will wrap up all the elementary schools. And then we'll be moving forward with the middle schools and then the high schools. And then we're looking to get the IB schools in as well. So we have to look at where does that bring us with June, July, and how does that all fit. So we're working out some of those final details. We don't want to give you 6 schools at once, but we also want to make sure that they fit. And in terms of how they present, it's meaningful and informative to the board.
Where are we putting our 2 K-8 schools? Where do they fit?
I have them right now with the middle schools. I have them with Edison and Washington and
Okay.
Lombardi.
Okay.
So, yeah, Red Smith and Aldo.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Mark,
you're welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report.
Great. Thanks, Celestine. Next, we'll move to the superintendent's update, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Langsdale.
Thank you. I'd like to start with the calendar. We're moving quickly out of March and into April. April 7th is an important day. We have a special board meeting that starts at 5:15, immediately followed by our work session and then the organizational support work session. So all 3 beginning at 5:15 and ending when we finish, right here in the boardroom. On April 21st, we have our regular board meeting at 5:30 here in the district office building. And then on April 23rd, we have the Golden Apple Awards banquet. We had 2 winners this year, and one was from Washington Middle School. And it was very cute. All the students that she had flowers for her, and they were all excited. And I have to share with you, they were a little too excited at first, and I couldn't get over how they cooperated. I did my best middle school principal gathering of them, and they were just fabulous when they went in. And if you see the video now that they're running on the television of that segment. These students are filing in just like little angels. It's awesome.
There you
So
go.
anyway, so we'll be celebrating that on April 23rd at 5:30. So. And I have to tell you, the other teachers from Preble, and both names are not in my cognition.
Kelly Suda,
Kelly Suda.
Language
okay.
Arts.
Kirsten Westcott.
And Kirsten, yep, Kirsten Westcott. So congratulations to them and for doing great work. We have many teachers, obviously, who could be honored there.
A lot
but
of teachers of distinction from our district,
a
too.
lot
Yeah.
of them, yeah. So, anyway, that is the calendar. And one of the things that I started at the last meeting was just sharing some letters from students that have come to the high schools and or any school. The last one, I think, was a letter from a college student to a teacher at King. This is a letter from a college student to reflection on his education at Preble High School. And I thought I'd just share some highlights from that. The young man's name is Henry Kieran McCabe. He said, I didn't decide to go to Preble until a month before school started in 2007, right before my freshman year. Then he goes on to say, I'm currently a junior in aerospace engineering and mechanics in the honors program at the University of Minnesota. I work in 2 research labs, one pertaining to engine research and the other pertaining to work on unmanned aerial vehicles, or drones, as most people call them. I'm the president of the university's Formula SAE team, which we design and build a race car every year and compete against 120 other schools around the world. Then he goes on to say, while I worked hard for all of this, I think it is safe to say I would not be in the same position without having attended Preble. Preble offers many more AP courses than other schools, with teachers who care about students and their success after they complete the given course. Without that, I wouldn't have been able to come to college with a second semester sophomore credit standing. Thanks to all of the credits, I now have a lot more choice in the courses I take. And then he goes on to say, every single one of my AP instructors made the information interesting and easy to learn while instilling an attitude in students that helped them prepare for college courses. And I can't forget the great technical education I received at Preble in the Tech Ed department. And then he goes on and he says, there is a course here at the University of Minnesota that mechanical engineers take the first semester of their sophomore year that teaches the exact material I learned freshman year in high school at Preble. Junior year of high school was by far my favorite, as we designed and built an actual race car very similar to the ones I build now on the Formula SAE team. It was great hands-on experience that I'll never forget. Not many people can say they built a car and actually raced it before they go to college. Overall, Preble was a great school that offered a great education. Preble offers a great faculty who want to see their students succeed and who give the students all the necessary tools and knowledge to make their success a reality. I would definitely recommend Preble to any student as a place they can get started on the right track. Other chairs.
Very nice.
Yeah. So as they come in, and I'm getting a few more, I'll just keep bringing them forward because it's a nice story. So, and it's highly successful.
I think we saw that race car too. Was that the one that was in
You can see one at Preble now.
Yeah.
They make one
They
almost
make
every
one every
year.
year, yeah, so it's.
They would let me go in after they're finished their competition, just in case I would
Did you
crash
go?
them.
Did you go? You drove it?
And that was smart of them.
Most of them, yeah.
Most of them, and you're still here,
And the cars are still in one piece.
Well,
But it's
we
duly
can't say
noted.
that.
It was
he wasn't-
fixable.
It was
He wasn't allowed in until after the competition.
After the competition,
Yeah.
so it's not to, okay. The next thing I have on my agenda is policy 164, talking about board member compensation and expenses policy.
And that's
you.
That's just our yearly look at this policy to see if there's anything we want to change. The last time it was changed was in 2007.
Last time it
And
was
we
changed,
also-
right.
That was the last time anything was changed in here. And I think the compensation also has been unchanged
Since before that.
you got on the board, or do you remember?
It was changed from the per meeting
Oh,
rate
to a
to the
lump sum.
annual rate
Okay.
that was pretty much comparable to what the per
What we had
meeting
been
rate
doing?
was.
Okay.
But it's been.
And we also got the listing of comparisons of other board
I have a question on that
salaries.
form. Where, does that mean there was no response, or was that a value of 0 that they said nothing's given?
Value 0.
Nothing. Thank you.
This would be the time too, if anybody had any recommendations for changing salary structure or salary itself. If there isn't, then, go ahead, Celestine.
So, in looking at the comparisons, which I think is always important, it seems that at this point, compensation is, reasonably in line with other school districts close to us and/or similar to us in size. However, what I think we need to continue to do is to look at this every year and not have it as a foregone conclusion that we shouldn't raise the compensation for the board. Given all the discussion that we had a couple months ago, I think it's important to just look at it and to continue to get the information from other school districts. But I don't make any recommendation to increase it this year, since it seems like it's in keeping. And, I have to say, I have to note, the compensation is wildly all over the place.
It is.
Not to poke at our dear superintendent, but in much the same way that the superintendent compensation is wildly all over the place. Which is something we had learned, that there was just no sort of hard and fast rule when we had our search a couple of years ago for what superintendent compensation looks like. So I would like us to keep those things in mind. I'm not making any recommendations this year, but moving forward, I think we need to look at it every year.
Just a thought, would it make more sense to bring this up at the April meeting after the election? Just in case there comes a year where the board feels that it should be raised, but then 2 or 3 candidates
Sure.
up for reelection, well, I can't vote for it because then it'll be an election issue. I think it should be raised after the election.
Does that not jive with our discussion? I mean, I guess we can talk about board compensation at any time.
Right.
Either with or
Annually.
separate from the teacher and administrative compensation.
Right.
Then that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
End of April, beginning of May.
Yeah.
I agree with Celestine said about, I think we're doing okay relative to other districts, which one can argue is next to nothing. The only one that I could entertain right now an increase in would be compensation, or I should say reimbursement for mileage. The way gas has gone up, but it's not a showstopper for me, but if I did anything, it would probably be in that area.
Although there's a
Federal rate.
standard, yeah. Alan?
Oh, that's when you travel all the time, but we have that starting every month.
Yeah, we
We're
have-
traveling
Oh,
with
the amount
district.
that's added
Part of
into
our-
the,
we-
into the
part of our-
pay,
I
the
see.
pay
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, that,
Salary
okay,
is
okay.
a mileage stipend.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I don't even know what is that based on? I
What
don't even.
yeah, I think that's.
Do we still have it?
It's like-
I thought
it's
we
like-
just get the regular now.
Oh, it's like $8 or something.
It's on the W-2.
It's based, I think, on $250 for the entire year.
Oh,
I can
well,
get
isn't
that.
it 54 cents a mile?
Yeah, it's not much.
That's only 120 a mile? No, $500.
But it's paid on your check each payroll.
Yeah,
It's-
right.
it's
There's,
two-
The total
it's-
annual amount divided
there's like
by
$8 a paycheck or something.
Well, and the intent is to reimburse travel to and from these meetings, because other meetings you attend, you then submit.
Like if you go to the
mileage.
state
Out of
convention,
town.
you.
Right.
Well,
accept-
also
Well,
just
not
wandering around the
these meetings,
district.
But,
Yeah.
many of us are able to visit different
Yeah.
schools at different times.
Right,
Yeah.
right, no.
And again, it's not a showstopper, but if there would be anything that I think should be adjusted, it'd be that.
Was there ever a set number of miles? I mean, where did the 250 come from? What was that based on? Do
It
you
was a
remember?
determined amount, and some.
So
it
that
wasn't
had to have
like
been based
at
Long
that
time ago.
time
The
based
reimbursement,
on-
which has got, it's now 54 cents a mile, is that right? 52?
That was when gas was
And again-
54 cents
and
again.
again, it's not
Yeah.
based on how much the mileage rate is. It just was a dollar amount at that time, rather than have the board members
Keep
to,
track.
Keep track of every trip.
Right.
It was a lump sum over the amount of payrolls, and because it's not detailed, it's taxable, and that's why you see language
On the W-2.
on. I can get to that amount, I just remember.
Well, I mean, I think even given what the current reimbursement rate is, it seems like a fairly generous mileage allowance for just, for tooling around. Yeah, even at 52 or 54 cents a mile.
Did you want me to change the board policy to, why don't they not put a month in there and just say board compensation shall be reviewed annually, period? And then you can.
That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
take out the in
Let's not-
January, yeah, I think
let's
that's a
not
good idea.
hamper
But then how do
future
we,
boards.
When do they bring it up?
well, yeah, I mean, yeah,
Want me to change it
I would
to
change it to April.
April?
Yeah.
April?
Because otherwise then, you know, in 10 years or whatever, all of us are off the board, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. There's not a date
Right.
on there.
Why wouldn't we do it at budget? Why would we put that in the budget?
Well, April gets it ready for the budget.
Yeah.
'Cause you
Yeah.
guys are doing
For
budget
the
stuff
fif-
right
for the
now, aren't you,
14,
Alan?
15 budget.
Oh, we're doing
Just
budget stuff,
calculating.
aren't we all?
Yeah, I mean, because they've been working on it,
Well,
and I don't know that our changes
my
are gonna
bias
break
is
the
to
bank.
make a decision in the budget process. I mean, it should be budgeted for, shouldn't it? Not just all of a sudden find it for someplace else, and maybe there is an increase.
But that would be for the coming school year,
Yeah.
not the current school year.
Correct,
So we would set it in April, and then it would get put in the budget
Mhm.
for the summer.
That makes sense.
I mean, we can always,
Do we want to do it then in April again for next year, or are you okay for next year's?
Personally, I'm okay for the 14, 15 school year.
so do
Yeah,
it
I
in
think
2
that's kind of
years?
what our discussion
We'll
has
do that
been.
next year in 15.
Maybe it should, yeah, okay. I mean, otherwise we could do it every 2 years. And then at any point, anybody can bring it up. You know, it's not like it's a move.
Every 2 years?
Just an automatic review of the.
You might have a new board member who would be wondering about it.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. All right,
So we'll do it next April for
next April.
15,
Right,
16.
right.
We're good?
Okay, we're good.
Okay, and the next item I have is a requested exception for sibling intra-district transfer requests. So Melissa will come up for that one.
Good evening.
Evening?
As we stated in the update, we had changed the policy regarding inter-district transfer this year, and we had closed 2 additional schools that had not been closed previously. As an unintended consequence of that, we have families who would like their children to be together at a school, and when they placed their students at these 2 schools, Red Smith and McCullough, they were informed that their siblings would get preference. We're asking for a waiver of that particular provision. It will be a small waiver for families who have students attending these schools, and it will primarily be for the kindergarten grade level when we have the young ones coming up. Currently, we only have, this only affects 3 families, so 3 students, 2 at Red Smith and 1 at McCullough. And as our memo indicated, within 5 years, this will cycle out because there won't be any children who existed at Red Smith or McCullough where this policy had not applied.
That's reasonable.
We appreciate it, and I'm sure the families will appreciate your consideration as well.
Yeah, was this even necessarily have to be a board decision? Could administration made this decision? It
Well,
sounds
it
common
isn't- it
sense to me.
isn't- No,
This-
it
we're not
isn't a
voting
vote.
on it,
No,
we're just-
we
they're
just felt
informing us.
because it's
Yeah.
a slight change of what the board policy says because of an unintended consequence, and because there will be other parents who will say, well, I thought that school was closed, I can't get my child in, why did that other child get to come in? We thought it would be important to make this a public discussion,
You're
so
just
they
advising us
understood.
that you're doing it.
Yeah.
Correct. Much like
Yeah.
the Jefferson, Elmore
Right.
situation
Right.
was the last time as well, so.
Yeah, we just wanted it to make sure that people could see why we did what we did.
So should the policy be changed for future situations like this?
I think the policy provides, it's actually the rule, I think it provides enough latitude for us to be able to do that, provide the waiver for the, and these are such unique situations. We're hoping we don't have to close any more schools in the coming years, that we're able to accommodate our families, but if it need be, we'll definitely be cognizant of this, and we'll make sure that we include the exception for families who have students currently attending.
I address it right away.
And we thank the families for bringing this to our attention.
So you will be informing the families that they're allowed to enroll their children in those?
I think Terry Willems will.
Terry will?
Yep,
Okay.
Terry gets to send the happy news.
Okay, great.
Very good.
I think I'm next on the agenda.
You are,
Okay.
so I have no action items, so that concludes my report.
All right, thank you.
Wait, what about our little senior camp?
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's on the agenda, but it's further down. It's not about you yet. I'll let you know when it's about you.
Okay.
Good.
I'll talk fast so we can get to.
And we have the legislative
All right,
report in this.
now we will move to our legal update. Turn it over to Melissa.
Okay, this month's legal update is regarding frequently asked questions regarding Wisconsin's mandatory reporting law. And I provided you really the top 10 questions that I think come our way regarding mandatory reporting. I'm not going to read the document to you, but I'll just point out a few highlights. Wisconsin law requires all employees of Wisconsin public school districts to report suspected child abuse and neglect, and this was a change made to the law back in 2011. And the DPI and the law broadly defines who is an employee. So as board members, you are considered employees, and you are required to act as a mandatory reporter. So what are you required to report? You're required to report when you have a reasonable cause to suspect that a child seen in the course of your professional duties has been abused or neglected, or you have the reason to believe that a child seen in the course of your professional duties has been threatened with abuse or neglect, and that the abuse or the neglect of the child will occur. And that needs to be reported to an agency, to Child Protective Services or to law enforcement. And the law does not state what agency is required, so long as a report is made to either Child Protection or to law enforcement. When employees perform dual functions for an employer, such as if you are an advisor and a teacher, if you see children in the course of your duties, of your professional duties as an advisor, and you learn of information that needs to be reported, that too also must be reported, not because you didn't see that as a teacher, but you are also performing duties as an advisor. So that information would need to be reported as well.
Melissa, can I ask a question on that? What if a board member observes abuse or what they think is abuse when we are not acting in official capacity as a board member?
The law says you are not required to report that, but you may report that as a mandatory reporter.
Okay, because I go into schools sometimes, not as a board member, but as a volunteer, continuing something I did before I was on the board. So if I observe something, wouldn't be required, but I may.
And we would encourage that for the
Okay.
safety of our students.
Okay, all right.
To that point, if you're a volunteer in a school and you're not a board member, do you then report it to a teacher, a principal, or an employee, and then is that person
In
a
order
mandatory reporter?
For mandatory reporters, you have to have firsthand knowledge of the information. So if you have secondhand knowledge, what the DPI and the law says is that you are not required to report. So we would encourage, as volunteers in our schools, if they are aware of suspected child abuse or neglect, that the volunteers themselves report that abuse, and we can assist through that process if that's necessary. But you're not required, but you're encouraged.
And if the person, an employee in our school gets secondhand information, are they also allowed to report, or can they not report?
They're allowed to report, but the law prefers firsthand information.
Okay, and our employees, do they know how to help a volunteer who's bringing that forward go through the process, gonna help them go through that process?
I included in the report the Green Bay Area Public Schools Child Abuse or Neglect Reporting Procedures. So they know where this is stored. They also know that to contact their social worker or to contact a guidance counselor or even the principal who can assist in that process.
Andrew?
So although not required by law, do we require reporting of, by district policy, do we require our volunteers to report something they see when they're volunteering?
We do not, by policy.
And is there any potential, I guess, pitfall, and Mike, I'm sure if you saw something, you would still report it, of course, but would there be any pitfalls for a board member who said they weren't in their official capacity and for someone else to decide, no, actually you were? I mean, I've certainly read some things in the school board journals before I pretty much quit reading them, but warnings that you never take the hat off, I guess, is the point. You're not of that same opinion?
I'm not saying I'm not of that same opinion. I would have
Okay.
to look at the individual
Okay.
facts to make that determination.
Okay.
Any other
And
questions?
then, if you just want to turn to the second page, the law defines 4 different areas of what needs to be reported. Again, it's abuse, neglect, emotional damage, and methamphetamine manufacturer, which includes if methamphetamine is on the premises of a child's home in a motor vehicle, or on the premises of a child's home, or where a reasonable person should have known that methamphetamine is being manufactured. That is included in abuse as well. I'm getting an odd look from Celestine, but that is.
So not marijuana growing, not cocaine processing?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
That's odd.
Breaking
That's
Bad.
bizarre.
I mean, that's.
That is odd. That's.
That is bizarre.
Though.
You've seen our legislators. I mean, bizarre that they speak something.
I think, I have no idea the intent of this, but
That's
a
just-
methamphetamine lab is very, very dangerous.
Dangerous,
Yeah.
Very
To a
dangerous.
child,
To-
yeah.
and
Right.
so I'm thinking that's the purpose. I don't know.
I mean, okay. Anyway.
I mean, it's dangerous from the standpoint that can't there be explosions?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
Yeah.
explosive, yeah. But I mean,
Marijuana's pretty quiet.
the grow lights. It's quiet.
Doesn't
The grow lights are
explode, last I heard.
Still.
We're not Colorado, let's be
Oh.
careful.
This is, that just seems like an odd, anyway.
I'm simply laying out for you what's required to be mandatorily reported.
Wow. I wouldn't even know what that looks like on a kid. That's just.
Well, it's stories. I mean, if the kid's telling you
Learn.
stories.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
I have a question under the neglect, where there's a clause in there for reasons other than poverty. So I mean, and I agree with that, but I also think that if a child's not getting, these basic needs, that's critically important that we find a way to provide that. And so but that falls under our own social workers, school counselors, to try to help those families to provide the needs for the child, when they can't, as opposed to when they choose not to.
Correct. I agree with you.
If a child talks about having access to weapons at home, easy access to a gun or something like that, is that something?
That was discussed in some of the guidance, and that is not considered abuse or neglect or emotional damage.
It's gotta be a meth lab, okay.
So,
You
but
have
that
any-
could be as our own social workers again. Just keep
Correct.
piling the work on the
I
social
know.
workers.
It's a good thing we have great social workers.
Yes, it's
Yes.
a good thing.
So if you have any questions, you always know where to find me, but thank you.
Right,
Thanks,
thank
Melissa.
you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have our Intercity Student Council report. Turn that over to Bianca.
Alrighty. Well, today was our first day back from spring break, as you all know. It was a working spring break for many of us. Track and field started up 2 weeks ago, and so we had our first city meet the girls had it on Wednesday, the boys had it on Thursday. The Preble boys won our Thursday, the boys' Thursday meet, and the Preble girls were edged out by our Catholic counterparts on Wednesday at our meet. But anyway, good stuff going on with track and field. Everyone's pretty excited with that, and it's all inclusive within the city, so exciting. Over at Preble, our band leaves on Tuesday for Washington, D.C., where they will be playing. So it's kind of exciting because whenever we have our team or any sort of group going on to a state event or just going somewhere big to be recognized, the band always runs through the hallway playing and recognizes the athletes or whoever it may be. And I know Dr. Langfeld, you've been there as well as
It's very
Mrs. Powell.
exciting. In fact, when are you going to do that?
I'm not sure if they're doing it for the band, just because the band is the one that
Creates the excitement.
creates. Right.
I think the track team should get pom-poms.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they can do something.
Yeah.
You guys could rally, but they do it for you.
And it's really exciting to recognize the group that does so much for our school
You guys
in
can
terms
at
of
least
spirit.
applaud if they go through the
Yes.
halls.
I love that.
I'll bring that to our
All right,
administration.
thank you very much.
And then we have also started on our play Metamorphosis, as many of the other local schools have. And then in terms of state wrestling, I know that was a little while ago, but I have not gotten to mention this in any of my reports. So Evan Garcia is a senior at Preble, one of my friends, and he was in the quarterfinals, 132 pounds, I want to say. And this was his third year going to state, so everyone at Preble is pretty proud of him and still is, obviously, as he continues his career. Over at East, we have heard that it is the most AP sign-up in recent history, so that is a huge deal, and a lot of people are very excited about that. East is a school that is so full of pride, and especially in terms of academics. So this was a really great thing to hear. Over at West, Morgan Starry, who was next to me at our last board meeting, she took third place at state bowling. So that was really exciting. I mean, third place in the entire state, not even in her division, but third, and that was really exciting. At Southwest, the Southwest Troyettes, the dance team, took first in their routine, one of their routines at state, and they also went on to the national tournament. And they also placed in that same routine there, though I'm not sure what place they got. So everyone in the city was pretty proud of them. And
They've been doing that for 20 years.
Yeah,
The
they
Troyettes
have.
have been placing in nationals, yeah.
Yeah, that dance team is definitely one of distinction. And then this past weekend, we had Operation Snowball, which is, of course, facilitated by Mr. Becker. It was a huge event. I mean, 50-some people. We were over in Mishicot at Camp Topawingo. And so we stayed there Friday and Saturday night, and it was a retreat, a leadership retreat focused on drug and alcohol prevention and awareness. And also, in my opinion, it was a lot of tolerance, acceptance. You got to know so many different people that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise, gotten the chance to meet. A lot of different groups got to come together for this, so it was a really great event for our district, a really good showcase. Also, we had the CP Telethon, which I know many of you know about, as we had that the first weekend of March. All of the schools got together and we raised over $3,500 collectively. So that was really fun, and myself included, many of the ICSC members got to be on TV that night. So that was a lot of fun. And then forensics, our districts just happened the Thursday before spring break. So now many of our area teams are going on to the state tournament in Madison, as they have for many years. That's really exciting as well. And the biggest piece of news I have to offer is this past Wednesday and Thursday, the DECA teams were over in Lake Geneva, and so many of our area teams did very well. Lots of people going on to nationals, which I believe are in Atlanta this year. But we have had elections for next year's DECA state officers. There are 6 different positions, and three of those positions are coming from the Green Bay Public School District, including the president, which he is also in ICSC, Mr. Mitch McMahon, and also the vice president, Tom Brennan of he is a vice president of chapter development, Tom Brennan. He's over at Preble, and treasurer Riley Vandenplas, also at Preble, and he is of community service. So it's really exciting to see 3 of the 6 people in the entire state coming from our district. So good things happen.
It's very well. It's good.
Question, if I may. This may have come up before and I might have missed it. Did we not also recently have some National Merit Scholarship winners? And if you're unsure of that, maybe we could get recognition for that later.
Sure, I can.
They weren't done.
thought they were done.
Still in process, but
I
yeah.
remember, yeah.
They
We
were
had
making
something,
the
we're
cut.
trying to, I think they just made the cut, like they're finalists, and
Right.
they haven't
They
actually
keep moving.
won the National Merit Scholarship yet or something.
They go through that process.
I don't know.
We have some
I thought
poll
we had
winners
these two in the
too.
district.
Oh, we do have
Yeah.
Yes.
poll winners.
Yeah.
I thought we had these two finalists in the district.
But the fact that they're finalists, does that mean they won the scholarship? I don't think so.
No, they're in the
There's
the
the
pool
last,
for the, right.
yeah, step or something.
Right.
So anyway, if and when that happens.
I will
let
get
us
those ready
know.
for my next report, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bianca. Next, we'll go to the legislative liaison report, facilitated by Mike Blecko.
Thanks, Brenda. State education legislation, actually, there's some good news that came out of the legislature this term. The assembly is done for the year. They've adjourned, unless the governor calls a special session, which he may. The Senate has 1 and possibly 2 days left, April 1st and possibly April 2nd. I'll start with the good news. First of all, good news that 2 bills were not considered and didn't vote on special education vouchers, which have been a concern of ours for years. There was a bill similar to the one last year that received no traction, which was a positive. The bill, the Chad Weininger bill on the physical education requirement for K-5, additional 30 minutes a day mandated, that bill also did not receive any traction. A positive was the 180-day school calendar flexibility bill passed both houses, and the governor's expected to sign that. And Michelle, I don't know if you have any comments, but that certainly gives us and all of the school districts flexibility in not only making up, say, snow days or cold days, that you can, the number of hours stayed the same, but the 180 requirement will be taken away, so you can add extra hours to make up. Or this bill is very important to rural districts, particularly in northwestern Wisconsin, who have huge busing costs, and they would like to consider a 4-day school week, which would save, and with longer days, which would save them some busing costs. So I think that was a positive bill.
I think it's a step in the right direction. The recognition that school is based on an agrarian calendar has got to change, because we don't do that anymore like we used to. So I think it's a very good step in the right direction.
The school, and attached to the to my agenda are a couple of letters that went out in February dealing with Common Core and accountability, and then you received a copy of another kind of an emergency letter that was signed by Michelle, Brenda, and me last week, when it looked like the accountability bill may take some drastic changes. And I have to give Melissa credit for monitoring the situation, drafting the letters, and then running them by the 3 of us and getting those out. And I think those letters all had some impact. The scary assembly version of the accountability bill, and that was basically steered by Representative Jim Steineke, who kind of took it away from Representative Steve Costell, who was chair of the Assembly Education Committee, and that his bill would have put back in the provisions that were taken out of an original Senate bill that would have potentially closed 5% of so-called failing public schools each year. To his credit, Representative Costell sent a memo to all Assembly members saying, basically, don't pass this bill. This is bad, and we'll be sorry if we do.
And wasn't it a hard bottom?
Yeah.
Whoever's at the bottom.
Who's ever at the
Right,
bottom,
who's ever at the
5%.
bottom.
Not even like, here's the grade that you get, but
No.
whoever's at the
Right.
bottom gets closed. Right.
So the, and then over time, the SB 286, which was the compromise Senate bill, which took out all of the penalties. And one thing it did do is that by the year 2015-16, all voucher schools would have to be folded into the report cards. So that's a positive. That bill was passed by both the Senate and the Assembly, and the governor will sign that bill. So that is a positive. Although next year, we've got to keep monitoring this, because the scary part of that will be coming back. But we have a year to regroup and take a deep breath. Another bill that was passed was the Fund 80 bill. And the governor will sign this, and basically it was SB 478, and it basically directs the Department of Public Instruction to promulgate rules defining, quote, eligible costs, unquote, for community programs and services, and provides that only those expenditures that are eligible costs under the rules are excluded from revenue limits. So, and I think that that's preferable to the legislature deciding that Fund 80 shouldn't exist, or these shouldn't exist. I think it makes sense for DPI to take the lead in promulgating these rules. Michelle, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that?
We've asked for the DPI to give us
Yeah.
clarification, and that's really
Yeah.
something that we'll get now, and then it will resolve what has been a concern to people all along. Wait and see what they say.
And then there is one kind of scary bill that's kind of hanging out there, and I don't know if it's going to come up in the Senate's last day. It's regarding the forced sale of school buildings in Milwaukee. We brought this up and it was voted on in our WSB Delegate Assembly, opposing the forced sale of buildings. Milwaukee's kind of an unusual situation. All of the school buildings in Milwaukee are owned by the city of Milwaukee. But if they would sell any of the underutilized or vacant buildings, school board would have to agree to it. And I think the worry there is that some of the voucher schools want to buy some of the Milwaukee school buildings. The authors of that bill would like to extend that statewide. So in other words, Green Bay could be, I mean, we're growing, but if there ever comes a time where we might temporarily close a building or consolidate something, if this bill became law, that may kick in. So I don't think there's votes to pass that. I talked to Senator Coles last week, and he's vehemently opposed to this. He's obviously concerned that it's extended to Green Bay, but he doesn't even like it for Milwaukee, saying basically what's the legislature doing demanding that a school district sell its buildings.
So much for local control.
Right. So that's one thing I think just to keep an eye on. I don't think that that's going anywhere, but stay tuned. Anybody have any questions on the state legislation? I think there were a couple.
Do you have an update on the Common Core stuff?
Oh, Common Core. Yes, that, I think we're okay with Common Core. And I have to thank Michelle and all the other superintendents and some board members as well that went to Madison to testify, because I think they listened. There's a bill in two of the main authors, Vukmir and Farrow, sit on the Senate Education Committee, strong supporters of the Common Core bill that we've talked about. Basically, that would allow the legislature to write Common Core standards. That bill is in the Senate, but Senator Luther Olson, who's chair of the Education Committee, he's a strong Common Core supporter, and he basically hasn't let that come to the floor for a vote, and I don't think he will in the last day of the session. So it looks like Common Core will continue, and with the Smarter Balance assessment is fully funded in the state budget, so it looks like that's proceeding.
I think maybe I can make a plug that's related to that. We're in process of setting up a legislative mayoral community visit to come and see what the Smarter Balanced Assessment looks like. And so we will invite, I guess we could only have a couple board members there, but we would invite you.
Is that this Friday?
Well, we're in process of that. I think we ought to have a shift date because we needed, we were trying to get some legislators and make sure that their calendars were cleared. But it aligns with, I think once they see the increased rigor of what the students will need to know and be able to do, and when you look at the actual assessment itself using the technology, that's one component that will be part of the conversation. But the other component that we would like legislators to see is really the level of rigor that looks very different than just, multiple guess or multiple choice for students. So I think our intention is to really start to engage the community and legislators in a conversation about the transition of what that looks like. And I truly believe once they see this, and once the community, anyone, parents, as we start to see it, they'll start to recognize that the rigor that educators have been talking about that is contained in the Common Core looks very different and is much higher than what we have been engaging our students in and assessing our students in the past on WKCE.
So what are we showing them?
It's actually going to be a
demonstration?
We're piloting.
Yeah, Stephen Miller's going to be.
Oh, we're piloting Smarter Balance?
We're piloting
Okay.
Smarter Balance, and because we need to know what the system is, the size of ours, we need to know what that technology needs are. It's probably as much for, we've got educators, and so it'll be Diane and Stephen and Mark's team and Lori really having a kind of a presentation for them.
And when are you doing that?
I'm not sure. I'm looking at our communications person who's in
We
process.
hope to do
with
it this Friday, but that wasn't going to work out, and so now we're going to try to see if I'm trying to work with Senator Cole's scheduler to find out if Monday or Friday, the following Friday would work for him.
Okay.
Looking closer to April 4th.
It should be because they're done then.
Right. And then you'd want board members.
Yeah, I think it would be very good.
You can post it, and then as
we
many
could
of
post
us who want to attend could do that rather than limiting it.
I think it's really important because one of the big concerns with the Common Core coming out of New York City, or New York, who actually did the assessment 2 years after they started implementation, so they perhaps weren't quite as far down the road as maybe they should have been in their transitioning of students from what they past practice to the rigor of the Common Core, is that the student test scores went down. And that's been a criticism of the Common Core, but in essence, when you start to look at what the Common Core is being, what it looks like as compared to, you start to see why. And for our students, the challenge and opportunity will not only be, and we need our legislators and our community to recognize that not only is it the actual test questions, but also the use of technology within it, because there are tools and prompts within the assessment itself that tells students, it's like saying, go to use your calculator now. Well, if I don't know how to pull and drag, and if I don't know how to do this, or, I think it's more complex than that. So it'll be really important to start to see what this looks like and to get that to our public. So
Yeah, Senator Coles mentioned that to me when I talked to him. He's very interested in that. He's a supporter of the Common Core. When I mentioned to him that the night before I had been at the State of the City speech and the mayor endorsed Common Core, he says, we need to get the message out on Common Core, he said, because of all of the bad information that's going around. And I had WASB send to Senator Coles the WSB resolutions that were passed in January on Common Core and on the Milwaukee school sale, because he said, as I explained to him how this works, and I said, those are the official positions of WSB, and he wanted that as for ammunition, so we sent him those two resolutions. Federal education update. President's fiscal year 2015 budget request to Congress poses an increase of $1.3 billion over the fiscal year 2014 level for the Department of Education. That's the good news. The bad news is that most of that would fund competitive grant programs rather than provide increases for foundational programs such as Title I and special education. NSBA Executive Director Tom Genzel said, "We applaud President Obama's pledge to raise general education funding at a time when strong public schools are vitally important to America's families and the nation's global competitiveness. However, we are disappointed to see flat funding for IDEA and Title I despite the critical need for these programs." So that's, the Obama administration continues this race to the top ideology rather than increasing basic programs that help millions of underserved kids.
You know
So
what,
that's,
when they do these competitive grant programs, I mean, wasn't there a recent round and no school district in Wisconsin received a grant or something
We
like that?
actually applied.
Right, but I mean, but
No one in
within Wisconsin,
No.
nobody got a grant.
Right.
So I mean, it just is.
right. Yeah,
You know,
it's,
The frustration is.
there's a lot of politics involved.
There's a lot of
in
politics,
grant.
and look who.
Right, and it
Unfortunately.
continues to, which is so interesting to me, that it's coming out of the Obama administration,
Yeah.
because it continues to create winners and losers,
Right.
which seems to not align with the philosophy of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's, I continue to struggle with that when there are schools and children in great need across this country who, if they don't pay the grant
Right.
writer and have the leverage, can't win it.
Well, I think our
It's not right.
special ed funding, Alan, now is, what is that, 16%?
Well, the state is about 22%.
Yeah. And the feds had promised 40, and it's, what is it, 16 now?
It's in the teens.
15 or 16, you know, that's. And just real quickly, WSB launched the Stand Up for Public Education initiative last year, and you can go on the WSB website and click on that, and school districts all around the state are sharing their stories. NSBA just started its Stand Up for Public Schools. You can go to the website, it's Stand Up For, the number, publicschools.net. And it was previewed to us at the NSBA Advocacy Conference. It's going to be launched at the NSBA National Convention in New Orleans next week. But if you see this NSBA wristband, Stand Up for Public Schools, if you watch the Academy Awards or saw pictures later, Steve McQueen, who was chosen as, got the Academy Award for Director for 12 Years a Slave, when he was on stage hugging Brad Pitt, this band was very noticeable. He has agreed to be a national spokesman for NSBA Stand Up for Public Schools. So that's kind of cool.
He was British.
Yes, he was educated in the British
Yeah,
system.
he is
but
British.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, anybody has any questions, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Mike. Do we want to take a break?
We'll take a break, and we're building to your presentation, because you're
And I
next.
have no minutes. See, I have no time limit on
Oh,
there.
That scares me.
You've already minutes, Sandy?
Does anybody have a Post-it? We can change.
I make a motion, it's 1 minute.
It is 5 minutes.
5
Oh,
minutes.
Oh,
yeah,
Didn't make it to our computer screen. All right, we'll come back at 7:20. All right, I think we'll go back to our meeting. We have district events. This is the time for people to share any events that might be going on in the district that you'd like us to know about?
I don't know what it's been, but I think we all got an invitation, at least I interpreted it as an invitation to October
No.
2nd, April
October.
2nd, excuse me, April 2nd, Dr. Orfield, is it?
Yeah.
So I didn't quite
Third.
track that,
It
whether
was the third, I think.
Right.
we're truly
It
all
was
asked to
an
be there, or
invitation.
if so, who's going to go, and do you need to post it?
I think it can be posted and people, and
think
it's
we should
here.
post it.
It's in the board room, because I had asked the question and,
Yes. It's in my calendar,
right.
with no question.
I think it would be, what Dr. Orfield has done is he's really looks at communities as their demographics rapidly change, which our community has. And he actually, you probably got the report.
Which I haven't looked at yet, but Jennifer had included it.
I encourage you to read the
Yeah,
report that
I will.
Jennifer included, because even as early as the late 1990s, he notes, or early 90s, I guess, he's noting this shift in student enrollment and change of rapidly changing demographics in the Green Bay Public Schools, looking very different than the neighboring school districts. And what he talks about when he presents is what happens to the community when that occurs and nothing is done to address it. And so I think it's a good time to bring some really tough questions to someone who has studied issues around race and poverty and what it can do for the vibrancy or the shutdown of a community if people don't pay attention to the changing demographics.
I was trying to find from that study what his most recent data, how recent his data is on our.
On us?
On us.
It's older
Old,
data
yeah.
and what.
Old is meaning what? Like 2002, I think,
Yeah,
maybe.
and St. Norbert's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
St. Norbert's is
Census.
paying for him to come.
Okay.
They're sponsoring him, and in partnership with NWTC and UWGB. And then we're benefiting. But the piece will be then to determine if these three institutions want to pay him to do a current study. And really, that's the intent, to really look at if what our next steps might be, because they've not looked at his research. I've heard him speak, I've seen him in previous places.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a census and a couple of American Community Surveys, plus our own wins. I have that information. I'm
Well,
not a
and we
researcher,
can
but-
talk to him about that, maybe that's something we want, but I would
I'll be listening
assume,
to you in a few minutes.
I would assume that.
What was the time on that again, Chris? Do you?
Eight.
Yeah.
8 in the morning, 8 to 10 maybe, or
Yeah.
something?
10 in the morning.
Okay.
8 to 10 on
April
Thursday
3rd.
morning, next Thursday.
And it's right up here.
in the
Yep.
boardroom.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah, I'll
great
be here for it.
opportunity.
Yeah, I would like to hear what he has to say. I would like to hear what other people think he's saying too.
Right.
Yes. He does a really incredible visual with changing demographics. And you can start to see how things either segregate or integrate, depending upon which communities you look at and what he shows you. So, he has success stories and not so much. So,
The
Alright.
NeighborWorks open house is Thursday, 3:30 to 6, 301 South Oakland Avenue.
Mhm. I can hardly wait,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
saw it
Yeah.
before.
And then we
Yeah,
all,
you were there.
Yeah.
we all had invitations to the Coles Scholarship
Mm-hmm.
event.
That came in the mail.
Six.
And
Yeah.
then also
I'll be out of
the
town.
Smart,
Coles
Start
Scholarship.
Smart,
Senator Cole.
Senator Cole.
State, U.S. Senator.
they give scholarships
Kate
every
Coles?
year.
Oh, I
With
did
the
see
K.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will not be.
And then the Start Smart breakfast invitation too.
At Jefferson.
Jefferson.
And then
No,
the
that's
Jeff,
not
the
about
Start
Jefferson
Smart, something
Baptist.
different.
Yeah, do not all the board members get that?
I got one.
I didn't,
I
I'll go
probably
to the
get that because
Jefferson
I
one,
was
but
on the United
not the
Way
other one.
Committee a number of years
You're
ago.
going to be out of town for that, too.
All right, then we'll move on to Celestine. Franklin Middle School seventh graders trip to Camp Unuia.
So, this actually started because of the class that I take at the Y. And I thought it was a great opportunity. One of the class members is also a staff member at the Y. And she was able to write a grant, I believe, from Shopko. that enabled the Y to have students from Franklin Middle School, the entire 7th grade, go for a 3-day, 2-night stay at Camp Unalaya. And, you know, especially in light of participating with Mark and Mike and some other staff members on the field trip policy work group, I just thought it was a great opportunity to talk about how important it is for students to be able to go on these kinds of field trips and to have these kinds of experiences. My sons went to Aldo Leopold. Aldo does a field trip like that every year. There was a little snafu in the years that Zach and Caleb were there, but Zach and Caleb we provided that experience, you know, from our own home for them to go to Camp Unalaya. And it's a really great place to go, especially for people who grew up in this community. I think it's, dare I say, a rite of passage. I mean, it's been around for 75 plus years. The students had a wonderful time. I ate lunch with some of them, and they really, really enjoyed themselves. And I think 7th grade is also an interesting time to go off and do something off campus with your peers. You're still kind of liking people, middle school principals in the room, still kind of liking your peers. You haven't gone off to high school yet. It was lovely, and I just really want to commend the staff at the Y, Linda, Laura, also the staff at Camp Unalaya, Kyle McPherson, who is a very interesting man and leader, teacher, and then the head of the Camp Unalaya, his last name escapes me, his name is Ken. And of course, Sandy Byer was very excited to have this opportunity at Franklin. She and I had discussed a while ago, you know, with the coming of IB and having the students become now IB learners and have a global perspective, how she was, you know, sort of wondering, well, how are we going to help the students get out into the community, because that's the beginning of their global perspective and global learning. And this is just a great opportunity. And the students enjoyed themselves. And Camp Unalaya has some really nice cabins now that weren't there when my sons were there, so it was lovely. And I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do it again next year, the grant, but just a great opportunity.
Y does a nice job using that facility, because there are other programs that they.
Yes.
About how many youngsters were involved?
The entire 7th grade. So
had the opportunity.
That would be 250 students-ish.
I didn't know they could accommodate that many.
Well, in shifts, they went 2 sections at a time. One, or I should say half went, and then half came home, and the other half went.
Cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Didn't we have a discussion a while back about you camping and you decided you didn't camp? Did you change your mind?
I was there for lunch.
Oh, you didn't go the whole, okay.
She camps like I camp.
In a Holiday Inn.
There are no mosquitoes this time of year, you know.
Oh, it was beautiful, yes.
I
it
thought
was
for a
dry
fleeting
and
moment
beautiful.
when you commented on the cabins being improved, that.
Well, they gave
I
me a
thought,
tour.
did they improve on that much?
I am not betraying what I had said to you many years ago.
Okay.
I do not camp, and I was there for lunch.
Well, I got called out here. I thought you were camping.
No. My sons loved it. So that's good that I am able to give that to them, even though their mother doesn't like it. So.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to our system reports. Teaching and learning will be facilitated by Katie Maloney.
Thank you, Brenda. We have a couple of action items. The first, and I'll ask someone to second, my partner's not here. That the revisions to the harassment and/or bullying of students policy.
Wait, I think
Oh, you skipped
missed
one.
I skipped one. I beamed.
Being too far.
I beamed too far.
Equal
Okay.
educational.
There we go.
opportunities.
All right. That the revisions to the Equal Educational Opportunities Policy in Rule 411 and 411-R first reading be approved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? No.
This
All
was
right.
discussed at length at our
Sandy?
work session.
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Thank you. And I move that the revisions to the harassment and/or bullying of students policy 411.1 first reading be approved.
Second.
Any
So only
questions?
update.
That's
I
okay.
actually do have a question. I know we talked about this before. There isn't, what is the appreciable difference between harassment and bullying?
Usually harassment refers to a protected category, and also it's more ongoing. And bullying can be a one-time incident and doesn't necessarily have to do with a protected category.
Okay. Okay, yeah, awesome, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
That was easy. It's a good answer.
Yeah, that settles it.
Cleared it up.
Thank you.
Yep. Just stay.
Yeah, all right.
Any other questions?
No.
Sadie?
Blackout?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye. Carried 6-0.
And that concludes my report.
All right, next we go to organizational support, which will be facilitated by Andy Becker.
All right. I will. I move that the public gifts to the schools policy and rule first reading be approved.
Second.
Now, when I thought we made a change on the amount, but that doesn't get changed until the second reading, or? Well, sorry, I'm trying to call up the one there's more than one form here. Something I read still said 200, yeah.
It was in the rules.
The rule still says $200.
What were we changing it to?
Changing it to
Change it to
500.
500. So
Can we do a friendly amendment?
Well, we can change it.
Or we could change it for
Because
the
this is
second
just the
reading.
first reading.
Yeah, as long as we
Okay.
remember to do it, that would be fine, I think. Any other questions?
I seconded it earlier. Is that what you said? I'm
No,
sorry.
No.
questions.
Oh, I apologize.
All right. Well, Sandy?
Becker?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
I move that Myron Construction Company be awarded the bid for general construction for renovation of the school for academically gifted learners as presented.
Second. Anything you want to amplify about it?
No, we opened bids last Wednesday. The bids are all under budget by about $163,000, and we have a good group of contractors, and work would begin in April 1st if everything's approved.
Any other questions? No? Sandy?
Warren?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
I move that Herkman Mechanical Industries be awarded the bid for plumbing and HVAC renovation of the school for academically gifted learners as presented.
Second.
Do you want to elaborate any? Nope.
All
It's
three of these would be the same.
self-explanatory. Yeah, okay. Sandy?
Wagner?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
I move that Eland Electric Corporation be awarded the bid for electrical renovation of the school for academically gifted learners as presented.
Second.
Any questions? Nope. Sandy?
Blackout?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
I move that the performance contract for Nexus Solutions for the School for Academically Gifted Learners as presented be approved.
Second.
And again, Nexus is part of our energy exemption that we did in the last budget. Nexus is our performance contractor. We had already approved a project development agreement with them, and now this is the final agreement, the performance contract with Nexus. And they were, again, the contractor to determine the energy exemption, the energy savings in the project at the Cathedral School, Gifted and Talented School.
Their contract would be inclusive of all costs associated with the project, all the contractor costs and design fees, etc.
And in order to have the energy exemption, we did have to have a contract, a performance contract with a contractor. That was one of the requirements to be able to have the $4.3 million energy exemption to be used for energy projects.
So this is the bottom line for everything, the 4.3. Okay.
And that includes,
Yeah,
That
could
includes
you amplify that
architect,
dollar figure a little bit more for
architectural
the public?
fees.
Yeah.
All the design fees, all contractors would be rolled into theirs. So basically, we would, cut one check a month to Nexus, and they would pay all the expenses.
Okay.
So everything that we've already voted of above there is in this figure?
Correct.
Okay.
Because the total cost of the project, $3.1 million of the project is being done with the energy exemption. The remaining $1.3 million was in the district's budget for the 2013-14. Because there are some parts that are not energy related.
Is there a way of listing that in here? I think if somebody in the public
Yeah.
looks at this, you total it up and say, well, you're spending $8 million.
Right, yeah. That's
For
what-
the
that's
first
what
time I
didn't make
looked at
sense to me
that,
either.
I missed the work session. I looked
Yeah.
at that and I said, so somebody from the outside looks at it, it looks like we're spending $8 million at that school.
Right.
There has to be a different way of wording that.
Reporting it, yeah.
Well, again,
Are you
the
looking at
proposed
the
budget shows
chart or the-
Well, no, this,
$4.3 million.
if you look at, if you look at
It's
this
the-
and then you
it's
look
the
at, you
Nexus
total
piece.
everything
oh,
up.
right,
Another
yeah,
and another.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause normally we wouldn't approve a bunch of subcontractors and then a general contractor, right?
They're not really a general contractor.
No, but the others are
Yeah.
subcontractors, kind of, right?
Well, they're gonna hold the contract for them, but typically and the reason we brought it is that typically the board approves the contracts for the major contractors.
Because Myron is a general contractor.
Correct.
And Nexus is the project.
Performance contract.
There's got to be a better way of wording that.
There needs.
And so explain to me again the being done under energy exemptions, the $3 million, $3.1 million being done under energy
In the
exemptions.
14-15 budget, we had a decrease in the debt service tax levy. We offset that by doing a $4.3 million energy exemption, which added $4.3 million to our revenue limit one time. And so part of the, to be able to even have an energy exemption is to have a performance contractor. It's a requirement because the performance contractor is going to determine the amount of energy savings in the project. And that's why it's a requirement of, you don't get the energy exemption dollars if you don't have a performance contractor. And we did RFPs for the performance contractor and selected Nexus as being the best deal.
This sounds like Nexus gets $4.3 million.
It does, the problem, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
how much do they
Sounds
get?
like.
How much do
How
they
much do
actually
they
get?
charge?
How much,
Well, it's broken down on attachment A, and
Right,
there's,
but it's-
management fees, and then there's design fees which they've paid out to other companies.
Right, but how much do they get paid for doing the work that they're doing? Is their cost, I mean, they're sending it out to other people and putting those bids, or those bids are in this amount, but they must charge for their time.
Right, well, there's different, there's the management fee of $86,000.
That's theirs?
That's theirs. And then they had done some internal of the design work, they did some internal, and some was sublet out to other.
Okay.
They will have Construction management fee will be done by them, which is $131,000. And then whatever portion of design work they did internally. which I
And their
don't-
cost gets put into the energy
Correct.
exemption
Their cost is
amount
part of
is
the
part of the
total.
3.1
I think that's gotta be
million?
broken down.
I mean, we're not contracting with them for $4.some million. We're contracting with them for, the dollar value of the contract would be the differential that we're paying them, right?
But according to the way this is worded,
We're
it's a
giving them
contract for
$4.3
Nexus
million.
in the amount of
Yeah,
that's what it says.
$4,300,000 and.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was,
The total amount would be $4,305,882. That's the total amount that would be. The total project cost is the amount that they would receive.
But it looks like
What?
we're paying it twice.
Yeah.
I feel like we're talking in circles here, because
I-
it says performance contract for Nexus Solutions for the school for academic gifted learners in the amount of $4 million. The motion that the performance contract for Nexus Solutions for the school for the academically gifted learners in the amount of $4 million as presented be approved. So just simply the way it's worded, it does seem like we are awarding them a contract
For
for $4 million. Now, I understand what you're saying, that it's, the way performance contracts work is that here's the total amount of the project and you get energy savings out of that. So we have to find a way to, maybe, they're the ones that come, I don't know, it's too late now.
But technically, their contract would be the $4,360,000, because they'll
Because
hold
that's what the
they'll hold
exemption
all the
is.
subcontracts.
Right.
So they'll pay out the general contractor, and they'll pay out the design engineers, and
But I'm worried
But you
about
just
somebody
told me
looking
those
at
other-
this
But,
and.
yeah.
You just said
see
those
what I'm
other
saying?
three weren't subcontractors, so which is it? Are they subcontractors or are they not?
their prime contractors, Nexus will be holding their contract and paying.
So they
And paying
become
them.
subcontractors or not?
Well, then maybe that's the way
I
we need
don't,
to
I don't know
word it.
whether they're subcontractors as much as Nexus is almost like a holding company to pay them.
Yeah.
I guess what we should have had in the
That's-
previous three is to say, to be paid through Nexus,
Rather than the amount.
than the way it was.
Or we could
The
say,
amounts could still be there, but, and this amount is being paid through the Nexus contract.
or we could say now that Nexus Solutions will, as you just said, disperse the money, give the contracts, hold
To the contractors.
in
and
the
stuff.
amount of $4 million, and that, because unfortunately, it does seem like we're giving a total of $8 million bucks, or
Well, you
$7
could
million.
say,
yeah, that's
you
what I
know,
thought too.
in the amount
Yeah, that's what I
of
thought too.
$4,360,000, which includes the
Yes.
cost for general construction, plumbing, HVAC.
And it still looks like we're doing it twice. Still sounds like we're doing two.
Is the next one, is the fiber
What if you-
optics in there too?
No, that's separate.
Is that separate?
What is is $54,821 what Nexus is keeping?
It's the difference, whatever that is.
And if it's not right on top of whatever was prepared, why isn't it? I mean, when we're charging someone a fee, someone's charging us a fee.
Well, the fee, he said, is $86,000 for project management fees. There's $131,000 for construction management fee.
Alan,
Those are the
does this
two
have
I
to be paid this
remembered.
month?
If I
have
subtract
to be paid this
everything,
month?
we're still giving
It's not a matter of being
Nexus
paid, but we need to sign their,
Yeah.
we need to sign
Yeah,
their,
that's
Yeah,
what I
so
came up
that's-
to
with.
sign their letter, which, and their letter has that total amount on there. This is the performance contract that we're going to.
I'm going to withdraw my second, so.
Actually, I think it can only be withdrawn by the group as a whole once it's moved and seconded. I would consent to withdrawing it.
Does anybody know? Sandy, do you know if?
Well, or can we
just
amend
withdraw my
the
second?
motion so that?
Yep, you
it's
can amend the
top-
motion.
We can amend the motion
Yep.
so that it's something we're comfortable voting on.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's such it's.
I subtracted everything, and we're still paying Nexus $748,000 and $748 $1,146.
But they're
Is that
paying,
right?
they're paying the architect fees, we're reimbursing them for
Yeah,
that.
the architect fees aren't in here.
I ask unanimous consent to withdraw my
Consulting
motion.
services is something we're gonna be paying.
That's fine.
I mean, we're gonna be paying for the entire dollar
We
amount,
have to unanimously vote on it.
including their share of that $4 million. I mean, it's gonna cost us $4.3 million. That is the cost of the entire project.
3.1 is energy exemption, and
Correct.
1 point something is the
Yeah.
actual cost out of our budget.
Out of our budget, right.
So
Because only a certain amount of it dealt with projects that deal with energy.
Right.
And so the parts that you cannot tie to energy, we did out of the general fund budget.
Could we say, without having a total, that the performance contract for Nexus be approved? Without putting a figure in there, because they're not getting that money. And this motion sounds like they're getting $4.3 million.
But they are
Why don't we
getting
just?
some money.
They are getting some money though, and typically we have to have some dollar amount.
But the problem is that the whole concept of a performance contract is based on the total amount that they are doing for us. That's the problem.
That's the paper, right?
Yes.
Again, it is the total.
Yes.
They are
Right.
the performance
Right.
contractor for.
So I think
But it
it
sounds like
needs
they're
more
keeping
words.
it.
I think it needs more words, not less.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was just gonna take the amount out. Does the
Yeah.
amount
Yeah,
have
but
to
the
be
problem
in there?
is, that's weird.
Well, within the letter, the amount would have to stay in there.
Yeah,
And this
I-
is,
I'm not
we
comfortable
need
with that.
to,
we could, you would almost have to vote, I think, a contract for Nexus Solutions, a contract for Nexus Solutions, then if we wanted to have the detail of contractors who are essentially becoming subcontractors in a way here, if we want to detail those bids for the public, we would almost have to put that, something like the contract for Nexus Solutions, including payment of Bergman for this, payment of ABC for this, and payment of this, and blank in fees.
Are they paying them? Is Nexus paying those contractors? They are paying them, okay.
We pay
We pay
Nexus.
them and-
But we give
Yeah.
Nexus.
Nexus pays
What's the
them.
wording
but
on
we
that?
did, but we did the RFPs because we were
Right.
able to determine which
Who to go
contractors we
with.
want.
Got it.
And
Okay.
so rather than them doing
Them doing
RFPs
all
of
the RFPs,
companies we
right.
aren't familiar with, we did the RFPs.
Okay.
Right.
But they will do the payment to
Then
them.
that's. what we
What's some of the
need.
language on the contract or the letter you have to sign? So maybe there's some help there on how this could be worded.
Well, again, it says, performance contract to Nexus in an amount of $4.3 million. So it is the dollar amount that is on the contract.
Is there a definition for performance contract?
That we can include.
I'm not sure what would the definition.
Well, the way you have it written there, getting this for performance
Well,
contract. What's a performance contract?
This
I-
is
I-
from the company itself. This is Nexus's letter for us to tell them we are awarding them the contract.
Well, I think
What is a
Andrew had the
performance
good-
contract? I'm looking for a definition on that,
Right.
maybe an asterisk or
But I
something.
think Andrew had the
Performance
right.
contract, because of it
You
being-
add that Nexus then pays Myron for this, Herkman for this, and an undetermined amount for architect's fees.
The performance contractor,
determined.
and again, it is a requirement that we have that, or we don't do the 4.3 million exemption at all.
Right.
Okay.
Right, but if we're
Nobody's
doing
arguing that,
that,
Alan, they're arguing the
No.
way it looks here.
No, well, no, but you asked what
What
it
is a
is, and their
performance?
responsibility is to determine what the energy savings are on those projects, and they have to tell the state what those energy savings are for us to be able to do the energy exemption. I mean, there are requirements that we have to follow. One is that we have a performance contractor, and their duty is to do the project and also to determine what the amount of energy savings are.
I think
in
we're
those
talking
projects.
past each other here. I don't know whether
well,
superintendent's
okay, so
understanding what
I've
we're
had
looking for here or
I
not.
Yeah,
requested
I-
to withdraw my motion several minutes ago
What are you trying to accomplish with?
to
withdrawing
just
your
start
motion?
over.
Start over with new
With
language.
To make another
something that's
motion?
acceptable, I
Oh,
suppose,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
I don't know what it would look like, but it's,
So, fine, let's just cleanly withdraw the motion. So you moved to withdraw, I'll second that.
I don't think you need to vote on that.
You can,
Oh, yeah.
well, you don't have to if there's, if the chair asks unanimous consent and no one
Just allow you to
objects,
do
then
it.
you can do it.
Just do it.
Okay.
Okay.
But
yes.
as soon as Chris seconded it with the property of the board, not
Right.
the maker.
Right.
So now that there's no motion, the other problem is that
Can we talk without a
If you look
motion?
at the,
Can we talk without a motion?
No.
Okay, I'm just
No.
gonna
We
throw
need a
out
motion
another
on the floor
motion
to
out
talk.
there.
Yes.
I move that the performance contract for Nexus Solutions to manage the renovations for the school for the academically gifted learners in the total budget amount of, no?
No, they're not managing the
No, they're
renovations.
not.
What they're doing
Okay.
is,
Oh,
go ahead.
Nope, go ahead, I interrupted you.
If you look in the second paragraph, Nexus gives an explanation of what they are. It talks about the services, what it's not limited to.
Where
I
is
mean, if you're looking for
Although-
an explanation.
Where's
That-
that?
I don't
this
know.
is not
the Nexus
limited to
piece.
project
attached.
management,
It's in-
engineering,
it's on the
architectural, construction
School
management,
performance
commissioning.
contract. GT school performance contract.
No, I can't see any PDFs on my computer. So it's really hard for me to,
Lori, open, go
Open.
down a little bit
Yep.
and open the performance.
Yep.
The performance one, this one here?
Yep.
No, not the five, go to that one,
Yep.
open that one. That's the letter
That's the
Alan's
letter,
referring
yep.
to.
Now, if you look at the second paragraph,
Right.
the
okay.
second sentence is, it says, included but not limited to the program management, engineering, architectural, construction management, and commissioning. The trade
Commissioning.
contractor, see, they also have to commission the project.
Right.
Would commissioning be a key, we're paying you word?
Yeah.
And it just
Yes,
says
you ask them to do it.
contractor work as bid on, March 19th is provided under the
So-
commission.
So how can that be included in the motion so that it,
So, okay, so Nexus Solution is a performance contractor that will commission the energy efficiency and take financial responsibility for
The entire
paying the
program.
contractors.
that's what it says, it allows federal agencies to complete energy without upfront capital costs and special congressional appropriations, is what
So,
the federal.
Performance contractor.
I think we actually have to, if we're going to in fact vote a contract to Nexus with a $4-point-something million amount on it, then I think if in fact that's a requirement, and I'm not saying necessarily it is, the
Alan is
previous,
saying
then the
yes.
previous
Yes,
motions
it
have
is.
to all go, because otherwise we're approving we are absolutely approving an expenditure twice. Even though it's not going to happen, I get that it's not gonna happen, we in fact,
And so then you indicate all of those other individually in this one large motion.
I think you would have to
Yeah.
say it, if, you probably don't need to, but I can see why people would want to.
Right.
So then we would have to make a motion that the contract be awarded in the amount of 4 million, including, we could say including including
And then
the
list
attached,
of-
we could
right.
even say
Bids.
including the attached bids,
Right.
including
low
the
bid,
attached
attached low bid.
electrical bid to,
And
we can do
then-
that, and then we
right.
can just attach them. How does that
And we
work?
could even put
I
in
agree, because
parentheses,
if we do what we're doing,
specific
then
amounts to each
we're
of them.
authorizing a spending of $8 million.
Right.
Yeah,
So it
I mean,
says include
Even though it's not
attachment
going to
B.
be done, we
Yeah,
are
but it's-
authorizing the,
Right.
Yeah.
okay, so do we need a motion so we can continue talking?
well,
We have to negate our previous votes, I think, on.
No, we don't.
no,
No,
We-
we don't.
No, I don't
yeah,
think so.
I think you do.
No,
No.
because you.
No,
can-
because you've just.
Because you have to award the contracts
You've
to those
awarded the
people.
contracts.
It's
But now
attached
you
with
sum
But
it up.
Nexus is awarding the contracts.
No.
No, we award the
award the
contracts,
They're
but you can
paying them and
use,
managing.
include those, I agree with including them as a summary
Yeah.
in the
attachment
Nexus.
B.
Right.
I think the way Andrew had it phrased would work into say to include and then itemize out each of those
Right.
contracts you've already approved.
Right.
So we don't need to rescind those
We don't
previous
need to rescind the
motions?
other ones, because we awarded those
Okay.
individually, and then just summarize them in this nexus.
So it's very
Motion.
clear to anyone reading it
Yeah.
that this 4 million also includes
Includes
this,
those,
this,
those.
and this that was
Right.
approved in a previous motion.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, so it's, they take all of the general, all of the HVAC, and all of the electrical under their umbrella, and none of anything else?
Do they take the fiber optics, or no?
No, we
That's
take the
separate.
architecture fees
Plus architect, yeah.
and design fees.
Okay, is there a motion on the
It's
floor?
under attachment
No,
A.
go ahead
Lori,
and make it, are you ready to make
Okay,
it?
the
Lori-
floor is open.
Scroll down to,
Yes.
keep going to attachment A, because there's all the costs that are itemized out.
You can't see per attachment.
What? No, you can't see the entire attachment.
No, you see, you can't say per attachment. You have to put it.
No, but I'm just saying, because people are
No, she's just.
talking about numbers, and I'm just saying,
reference.
here's all the numbers.
Okay, I'm gonna
I'm not saying
start,
to put that in the motion, sorry.
so
Okay,
I'm
make your
I'm
motion.
gonna start
Start
making my
talking.
motion.
Yes.
I move that the performance contract for Nexus Solutions for the School for Academically Gifted Learners in the amount of $4,360,703 and
Which
I
includes,
forget I just
To
said-
include.
to include the general construction bid to Myron Construction,
You mean general contractor?
the general
General
contractor
contractor.
bid to Myron Construction for $1,791,527,
Okay.
and
plumbing.
the
HVAC.
plumbing and HVAC renovation bid to Herkman Mechanical for $1,063,600,
Oh, okay.
and the electrical renovation bid to Eland Electric Corporation for $567,830. And then
Second.
someone's gonna add them up though.
As presented be approved.
No,
Or do
no,
you
no,
want to
because that
add
does
in the
not
commission
add up
fee?
to $4.3 million.
So then,
But
No,
it
they
says
don't,
to
though.
include.
They don't
To
add up
include,
to-
it
They don't
has
have to add up.
Okay.
It just says it
Because they don't add up, it
Okay.
doesn't include the architect's fees.
Right.
yeah, okay,
Their fees.
And the project
So
management
that's-
fees.
Okay.
all right, so that's my motion.
Okay, and he seconded it.
He seconded.
Okay, do we want to say anything about effectuating, basically defining the performance contract? They effectuate energy savings, and then they basically fulfill the contracts with the
Contracts.
other people. Do we want to say
I don't know
that
how you
too?
do that in
I don't
a
know
motion.
That's
if you
really
need to
not
do
a-
that.
All right,
Yeah, motion.
alrighty.
Could have that in the minutes, maybe.
Okay,
You beat this puppy to death?
well,
I think
it
we
didn't
might.
make any sense, unfortunately. I
think-
wondered, I thought, oh, did I miss something? Like, where did we come up with another $4 million? So, okay.
Anybody else?
I think that does it.
I
That's
think
fine.
that does
That
it,
does
yeah.
I think it's very,
Yeah, makes it more clear. All right, Sandy, do you have that motion?
I do, I'll rework it though.
Okay.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye,
Flecka?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
carried 6-0.
I move that the fiber optic plan for the School for the Academically Gifted Learners as presented for $189,600 be approved.
Second.
I'll let Diane make her way up.
Well, in summary of my board report, we have an opportunity to work with the Board of not the Board of Education, that's you, Brown County, to join their existing, I call it the ring of fiber, that goes around Green Bay. They have a wide area network that travels throughout the city. And what we want to do is join them. At this point, we are leasing. We have a 10-year lease for two parts. The data transport, that's the hardware under the ground that takes the information back and forth. That's one of our contracts. That's a 10-year lease, meaning that this had to be built. This connection had to be built to connect all our schools, and we're taking 10 years to pay that off. The other part is the data that goes over that transport, and that comes from another company. And at this point, we'll stay with that company. But the goal and the vision is to, through time, become more independent so that we are working with the Brown County ring of fiber and connecting to that versus leasing or extending our lease or renewing our lease on something that we're paying rent for. Okay, and so as we knew about connecting and starting up the School for the Academically Gifted, we started to take a look at what are our options. We could go with the same company that we are leasing from and say, okay, could you build this connection, and then we're going to have to pay that off, and it would have been smart to time it so that would be up when the rest of our lease is up. That's one option. The other, which started with a conversation between Dr. Langenfeld and the county executive, Troy Streckenbach, was how can we work together? How could our schools work with Brown County and work with the community network? And good conversation took place from that, and that's how I've been working with Kevin Ray, then the IT manager for Brown County, and he has shown us where the ring of fiber is, and a lot of the east side is actually very close. A lot of our schools are very close to the wide area network. We've got some outlying schools like on Finger Road and things like that, Wigwiak, that we're going to have to continue to lease for a while. But as time goes on, the goal would be to start connecting some of these schools right into the Brown County ring. And that would take a build, and that's what I am proposing here, is that when we work with Brown County, we will be able to have Brown County pay for that build, and then we would pay them monthly payments to pay that off. Okay, we will be using our data, okay, and that will come through the district office building, and we'll be able to then get that data across the river, and it will, and that's part of the Brown County wide area network. And then what we'll do is we'll connect the School for the Academically Gifted to the ring of fiber for Brown County. Okay, and so they would pay for that build, and then we would take time to pay that off, making monthly payments. I want to do apples to apples, so I said we've got 4 years left on our lease with Windstream, and so I will talk about the total cost of what it would take to build and to pay this back with Brown County. And so that's how we got the figures that are on the chart on page 1 of my proposal. So the total cost would be working with Windstream, and this is in paying their lease for 4 years at $3,615 a month. The total cost would be $173,520. Okay, and so we would be able to use that transport then for 4 years. And after that time, we would have to renew our lease or work on renegotiating a lease. Now, for Brown County, again, in my attempt to make apples to apples, I said, well, if we took that total cost of $189,600, okay, and we divided that by 48 months, how much would it cost? And that's $3,950. And we could then have that paid off in 4 years. but we have 15 years to use that, okay? And there are no costs in year 11, or I'm sorry, year 5 through year 15, because we've paid all those fees ahead of time. For instance, Digger's Hotline, that's something that whoever has the fiber underneath, you pay for that service so that when people dig, you know, they check with Digger's Hotline first, and Digger's Hotline says, hey, there's fiber under there, don't dig here. And so there's an annual fee for that, but we would have paid that off within the 4 years. And so it would really be 11 years use without us paying anything, and until we get to that 15 years. And then again, we would renew at that point. Okay? So my recommendation, our department's recommendation, is that we would be able to go with Brown County. We could get that paid off in 4 years. Or we could choose to take longer if we desired, but we would have use of it for 15 years. Again, this is falling into my vision then of adding more schools onto this as time goes on. So by the time our lease expires for that transport, we've got more schools connected in this way. Okay, another vision then for the future is that we build out to UW Green Bay, because then we'll be able to get another avenue to get the internet into our district. So if one internet service provider went down, we would have another. You know, redundancy is important. We need to have a backup. It's important for us to have the internet and network access as we operate throughout our day. So that is the recommendation, and I feel that it falls into the long-term vision that we have as we move forward.
And if you look back to the 2007 referendum, we had in there to work with the county to do that with them. And of course, the referendum did not pass, and then the dollars were not available to do that. So it is something far back that we had hoped to do, and unfortunately it did not happen.
So this 189,000 is just for this school for academically gifted?
Correct.
And then as we add more schools, will it be that cost, or will some of the construction costs have already happened?
It depends on the
so
location.
That if the school is close to, it might not be
the ring
this
of fiber.
amount. Okay. Yeah.
Right. Yep. It could be an easy connection. Now remember, there's actually conduit that does go under the river, and so we would be joining that, but we would have to, you know, go from the district office building to that connection, and then from on the other side of the river from that ring to the school. So that's what that build is for. But you're right, we would be incurring costs, but then again, we would have that longevity and how long we could use the network.
Chris?
You may have just said it in the last answer, I'm just not tracking well. Well, when we go over to Brown County with this, how many schools, as soon as we go to them, will be connected?
Just one, the School for the Academically Gifted.
Okay, and in how many years will other schools be connected to it? And again, is there additional money involved besides the 180, whatever?
Yes, there will be. And the other thing that I did not report is that the Brown County has a SPIN number, okay, which is an identifier for E-rate. And so we would qualify in our payments to Brown County, we would qualify for E-rate. That means we would have a 70% discount, okay? And so again, the total cost of $189,000 will be subsidized as well. But the question is, how many schools? We will have a long-term plan then. Again, thinking of that 4 years that we have left on our lease, we need to check our current contract to see if, you know, if we stop services going to some buildings, if we are paying a penalty. And so we may want to wait until that 4th year when the contract expires before we actually start making things live, or at least when the penalties are not as high.
So I'm still not tracking well. So now one school for the 89,000. And is that then for 15 years just for that school?
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't following that, okay. So any other school we add, it could be theoretically another 189,000 with the county?
I would think that this might be one of the highest because of the distance and the traveling under the river part.
Except we have 20 schools that are on that side of the river.
We have west side schools as well, and that's why we'll have to review the distance between where the ring is and,
Okay.
you know, how many feet really it will take to connect to that.
In terms of the contract with the county, the only thing we're buying from them is what again?
Well, we are paying for the build over time, so they will finance the build.
Just in this one, though, you're talking about, this is one school, so.
Correct.
There's a build to that school and they'll pay for that build?
Yes.
Not
And
any
then
other
we
schools
pay-
unless there's
right.
additional contracts and money?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
okay.
And then we'll pay that build money off in 4 years at the rate of
If we choose to do it in 4
$3,950
years.
per month.
You could do it longer if we, you know, it's
Right.
finances. So we're, no other services from the IT department other than the build and using their line?
Correct.
Okay. And I ask that because I'm not impressed with the IT department in the county and the services they provide. So I don't want to get into that bailiwick that we have to go to them for assistance.
Anything else? Katie?
I'm just, the mayor in his State of the City address talked about how by the end of the year, he wants to have the entire city Wi-Fi. But that's
Ambitious.
it might be ambitious, but I'm thinking in terms of most of our schools being within city property, if our proximity to that ring of fiber, if in fact they're gonna have a ring of fiber, would be closer.
Yeah,
But
I'm
it's
not.
not a done.
I'm not sure what the mayor, you know,
Right.
whether he was talking about wireless access.
Right, that's what I think.
You know,
Yeah,
citywide.
because there's a whole other discussion about,
Right.
you know, what you get with, that's what I was saying, what you get with
Right.
broadband versus what you get with fiber optics. And so I was
Okay.
reading something just about how, you know, in America, sadly, we have actually very slow
We do.
internet access.
We do.
And so what happens, because, you know, I'm famous for reading stuff at other places. In Sweden, what they do is the city, the government pays for the wires in the street, which are fiber optic, and also T1 lines, like in Japan, and then a private entity pays to connect that to your home or business. In Tennessee, I think, the city basically did that for a whole neighborhood. So that, I think, is where the mayor is sort of nodding his hat, although that is a whole infrastructure change
Right.
that has not yet been effectuated here.
I was assuming you, now I shouldn't assume, you know what that means, but you're from Minneapolis. Minneapolis has Wi-Fi, and I don't know about out where you were. And that's not hard. That's, different street corners have their deal with it.
It's towers. Oh, yeah, which is not that great.
No.
You
no,
need the hard
it's
wire in
good.
order to get that fast upload.
towers.
That's where my kids are too.
Yeah, okay, so that's good too. Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Sandy?
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Waitman?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Thank you,
Thanks, Diane. Thanks, Alan.
I move that the pupil services secretary job description as presented be approved.
Second.
Any questions? We talked about this last meeting. All right, Sandy?
Blackout?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye. Carried 6-0.
I move that the service animals in the district policy as presented be approved.
Aye. Or second? Just think about the little phone.
Again, we talked about this a few meetings,
do
or
it. I
our work session meeting. Go ahead, Sandy.
Becker?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
I move that the consent items as listed be, did I skip one? No. I move that the
No, you
consent
didn't.
items as presented be approved.
Second.
Any questions? That includes the Head Start.
Head Start people have been diligent
Grant.
at sitting throughout our
Say
meeting.
Can make you say something. for
Would you
sitting
like to
here
come
so
to the
long.
table and say something?
Please go.
Come on up.
Oh, they're sleeping back there.
No, really.
Feel bad that they sat here a whole meeting.
I do too. I do too. It was very,
Thank you for being here.
very
Generous.
diligent of you.
Yes.
Why, we didn't vote on it yet.
Ready.
Ready.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Carried 6-0. And,
We're done,
we're done, right? We
Ready
have a
for regular
closed
board
session.
meeting. That's it.
All right, we have a
Thank you.
closed session. I will read that motion. Special board meeting closed session has been scheduled for Monday, March 24th, immediately following the regular board meeting. Pursuant to statute 19.851B, considering dismissal, demotion, licensing, or discipline of any public employee or person licensed by a board or commission, or the investigation of charges against such person, or considering the grant or denial of tenure for a university faculty member and the taking of formal action on any such matter, provided that the faculty member or other public employee or person licensed is given actual notice of any evidentiary hearing which may be held prior to final action being taken, and of any meeting at which final action may be taken. The notice shall contain a statement that the person has the right to demand that the evidentiary hearing or meeting be held in open session. This paragraph and paragraph F do not apply to any such evidentiary hearing or meeting where the employee or person licensed requests that an open session be held. And Wisconsin Statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibilities, to consider the preliminary notice of consideration of non-renewal for staff. Pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental bodies is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, to wit, potential litigation matter. And pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employer over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. And pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where paragraph B applies, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data, or involved in such problems or investigations, to wit, personnel matters. The meeting will begin in open session to consider the appropriate motion for a closed session so provided by law.
So moved.
Second.
Sandy?
Becker?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Maloney?
Maloney?
Yes, aye.
Carried 6-0. We'll go across the
3:30
hall.
said there's a lot of good things in it, but in its particular form, it maybe wasn't quite your bag, but
Snacks,
yeah.
which is
What's your tomorrow?
For more information or to obtain copies of this program, contact CISA 7 Interactive Learning Services at 920-465-5218.